Story 1. I flew across the country for my dad's birthday, only to be told I wasn't invited, so I cashed out on my entire family. 3 days later, I woke up to 53 missed calls. You know how they say family is forever? Yeah, turns out family is forever, until you're 2,000 miles away with a bank account they need. Buckle up, bros. This is going to be a wild ride. So I, 28 male, have been helping my old man financially for about 6+ years now. Not because I'm some pushover, but because we actually had a decent relationship back then. He worked his ass off raising me after mom split when I was 12, picked up extra shifts, never missed my games, the whole deal. When I landed my first solid job after college, I took an opportunity with a tech company in Boston, about 2,500 miles from my hometown in Arizona. The money was insane compared to local options, and Dad was actually the one who pushed me to take it. "Don't worry about me. Go make something of yourself," he said. So I did. It started with reasonable stuff. His truck needed repairs, and he was between jobs. The medical bills after his knee surgery when his insurance didn't cover everything. That kind of thing. He was always super grateful, promised to pay me back, though we both knew that wasn't really the point, and never made it weird. I remember the first time I helped him out. His ancient Ford F-150, the same one he'd taught me to drive in, had finally given up the ghost. Transmission was shot, and the quote from the mechanic might as well have been written in another language based on how pale he got looking at it. $2,800. For a guy who was working construction between more stable gigs, it might as well have been $28,000. "I'll figure something out," he told me over the phone, that stubborn pride in his voice. "Maybe my buddy can give me rides to work for a while until I save up." His buddy, who lived 30 minutes in the opposite direction. The math didn't math. So I called the mechanic myself from my apartment in Boston, put it on my credit card, and texted Dad. "Truck will be ready Thursday. Consider it payback for all those 5 a.m. hockey practices you drove me to." When I flew home for Christmas that year and saw him, he actually had tears in his eyes. Hugged me tight, promised he'd pay me back every cent. I told him not to worry about it. The look on his face was payment enough. For the first few years, this arrangement worked fine. I was making good money at my tech job in Boston. He was there for me with phone calls of advice and support, and it felt like we had a solid father-son thing going despite the distance. I even helped him with the down payment on his house because, honestly, I was proud to be in a position where I could do that. He'd spent decades in a crappy apartment so I could have what I needed growing up. I'd fly home for major holidays and occasionally a long weekend, and those visits actually meant something. The house wasn't anything fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom ranch style in a decent neighborhood. But man, you'd have thought I'd bought him a mansion from how excited he was. He kept sending me pictures of each room as he fixed it up. "Finally have a proper garage," he texted with a picture of his tools all organized on the wall. I flew home every few months when I could. We'd grill in the backyard, watch the game, and he'd show me his latest home improvement project. He'd always pick me up from the airport himself, no matter what time my flight landed. Those were good times. Real good times. Then he met her, the stepmom. Look, I tried to like her. Really did. She seemed nice enough at first, but it became clear pretty fast that her lifestyle expectations were, let's just say, ambitious. Suddenly, Dad was talking about renovations and vacations and upgrading everything from his wardrobe to his car. She was about 5 years younger than him, with the bleached blonde hair and the too loud laugh, always dressed like she was heading to a fancy brunch, even when we were just hanging out at the house. Within 3 months of dating, she'd convinced Dad that the kitchen absolutely needed new granite countertops. The perfectly functional counters that had been there since he bought the place? Outdated, apparently. And somehow I kept getting looped into funding these essential improvements. The occasional help gradually turned into regular financial support. Dad started calling more often, but our conversations got shorter unless they involved money. Still, I kept helping because I'd convinced myself it was just a rough patch. The calls changed too. It used to be, "Hey son, how's that project going at work?" Or, "Did you catch the game last night?" Now it was, "Hey bud, got a minute?" Which was code for, "I need something." Then there's my brother. We've never been particularly close, but we were always civil. He moved back in with Dad after dropping out of college, supposedly to find himself, which apparently involved a lot of gaming and very little job hunting. Whenever I'd visit, he'd make these little comments about how lucky I was to have a good job, like my degree and 60-hour work weeks had nothing to do with it. My brother is 2 years younger than me, where I took after Dad, practical, hardworking, likes sports. He was always more like Mom, artistic, restless, convinced he was meant for something special. Maybe that's why Dad always cut him more slack. But while I was working my way through college with student loans and part-time jobs, he was partying his way through his freshman year on Dad's dime. When he dropped out, claiming college was too restrictive for his creative process, I bit my tongue. My brother's creative process mostly seemed to involve playing League of Legends until 4 a.m. and sleeping until noon. When I'd visit, he'd barely acknowledge me, except to ask if I could spot him some cash until his next gig, gigs that mysteriously never materialized. The real shift happened gradually. The grateful thanks, son, I don't know what I'd do without you, became, we were counting on this. The occasional request became monthly expectations. The appreciation faded, replaced by a weird sense of entitlement to my money. Like the time I flew home for Thanksgiving and noticed Dad's new 75-inch smart TV mounted on the wall. Nice upgrade, I said, remembering the 55-inch I'd helped him pick out during my last visit. Patricia found it on sale, he shrugged. Been meaning to tell you the property taxes went up this year. Gonna be about $1,500 more than we thought. No connection between the two expenditures seemed to register with him. And weirdly, for the first time ever, Dad didn't pick me up from the airport that trip, said his knee was acting up. Yet there he was, perfectly mobile, showing off how he'd mounted the TV himself. But I still wasn't seeing the full picture. Family loyalty is a hell of a drug. Anyways, 2 months ago, Dad called about his upcoming 65th birthday. Milestone birthday, he said. Time to celebrate, he said. I've been thinking about doing something special, he told me, sounding genuinely excited for the first time in months. Nothing crazy, just family and close friends at the Grand Hotel downtown. I was actually happy to hear him sounding like his old self. That Grand Hotel isn't cheap. We're talking at least $250 per head for a private event. But if it meant seeing Dad enjoying himself like he used to, it seemed worth it. Send me the details, I said. I'd love to help make it happen. He practically gushed with gratitude. Started talking about how meaningful it would be to have everyone together, how he couldn't wait to catch up with me properly, how this would be the start of a better year. It's been too long since we really talked, he said, and for the first time in ages, he sounded like my dad again, the one who used to call just to check in, not to ask for something. I miss that, he said. I missed it too. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. Over the next few weeks, I transferred enough to cover the venue, a cool $12,000, helped pick menu options over the phone, even gave input on the music selection. Dad kept me in the loop about everything. Who was coming, the schedule, all of it. Aunt S is flying in from Phoenix, he texted one day. Uncle R and his new wife are coming too. Family I hadn't seen in years. This was shaping up to be quite the event. This is going to be great, he texted. Everyone's excited. I should have noticed he never actually said, I'm excited to see you there. But I was busy at work, and it felt good to be involved in something that seemed to make him happy. For a minute there, it felt like we were rebuilding our relationship. I didn't receive a formal invitation, but why would I? I was helping plan the damn thing. Of course I'd be there. I booked a cross-country flight, took 3 days off work, and reserved a hotel room near the venue. The day before, I texted him to confirm the time as I was packing my suitcase, and he responded with doors open at 7, dinner at 8. No mention of meeting up beforehand, offering to pick me up from the airport or anything. But I didn't think much of it. I even bought a new suit for the occasion. Charcoal gray Tom Ford that set me back nearly $2,000. I'm not usually a brand guy, but this was a special occasion. First time I'd be seeing some extended family in years. And after a 5-hour flight, I wanted to at least look good while fighting the jet lag. Wanted to make a good impression. The morning of the big day, I sent a quick, looking forward to tonight text. No response, but Dad was probably busy with last-minute preparations. I got a haircut, picked up my freshly tailored suit, even splurged on some fancy cologne. This was going to be the reset our relationship needed. My flight landed at 4:30, giving me just enough time to grab my rental car, check into the hotel, shower off the airplane grime, and get dressed. Driving through my old hometown felt strange. I'd flown 2,500 miles for this. Spent a small fortune on airfare, hotel, car rental, and that suit. But it would all be worth it to finally reconnect with Dad and the extended family I rarely saw anymore. I showed up to the hotel right at 7, looking sharp and feeling pretty good. The place looked amazing. Elegant decorations, professional staff, open bar. Exactly what you'd expect for the price tag. The Grand Hotel is the fanciest place in our city. Old school luxury with modern touches, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, staff who somehow always know exactly when you need something. The kind of place where even the bathroom attendant looks like he makes more than you do. Walking through that lobby, I felt a twinge of pride. Dad deserved a nice celebration, and I was glad I could help make it happen. I was looking forward to finally having some quality time with him after months of mostly financial conversations. What I wasn't expecting was the woman with the clipboard at the entrance to the ballroom. Name? She asked with professional courtesy. I gave her my name and mentioned I was the birthday man's son. She scanned her list, flipped to another page, then looked up with that practiced customer service smile. I'm sorry, sir. I don't see your name on the guest list. I laughed, assuming there had been some kind of clerical error. There must be a mistake. I helped organize this whole event. Let me double check with the event coordinator, she said, stepping away to speak into her headset. I stood there, not particularly worried yet, watching guests stream past me into the ballroom. I recognized family friends, cousins I hadn't seen in years, even Dad's old bowling buddies. My cousin Trent nodded as he walked by with his wife. Nice suit, man, he said, giving me a fist bump before heading in. Then a staff member approached. Are you with one of the vendors? Checking on the catering, perhaps? No, I said, still calm. I'm his son. I actually helped plan this whole thing. Oh, he said, looking uncomfortable. Just a moment. As I waited, I texted Dad. I'm at the door, but there seems to be an issue with the guest list. No response. 5 minutes passed. 10. Through the open doors, I could see the party in full swing. The room looked amazing, and everyone seemed to be having a great time, laughing and catching up. Finally, Dad appeared with my brother trailing behind him. Dad was wearing a new suit I'd never seen, and my brother had that smug look he gets when he thinks he's about to witness some drama. Hey, Dad said, with none of the warmth I'd expected. Didn't think you'd actually show up? I blinked, confused. What? I helped plan this whole thing. Of course I'm here. Dad glanced around, lowering his voice. Look, we decided to keep tonight small. Family only. The words hit like a slap. I am family, I said, keeping my voice level. What are you talking about? You know what he means, my brother chimed in. Real family. The ones who are actually here for him. Not just sending money from across the country and showing up twice a year. Jake was wearing what looked like a new dress shirt and designer jeans, probably paid for with the money I'd sent Dad last month for the urgent plumbing issue. I looked between them, reality slowly dawning. Are you serious right now? I paid for this entire event. The venue, the food, everything. Dad had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. And we appreciate that. But tonight's about celebrating without any complications. Complications, I repeated. That's what I am now? Dad sighed like I was being difficult. You know things have been strained. We thought it would be better this way. Less awkward for everyone. One of the waitstaff was hovering nearby, clearly pretending not to listen while catching every word. Young guy, probably college age, straightening already perfect place settings at the table closest to us. And standing just inside the doorway, watching this whole interaction, was my stepmom. She was decked out in what had to be a brand new outfit, complete with jewelry that definitely wasn't from a department store. When she caught my eye, she quickly turned away, pretending to be fascinated by a conversation with my aunt. I took a deep breath. Getting angry wouldn't accomplish anything, but I wasn't about to slink away either. Not after flying across the country, not after funding this entire charade. You know what? I said calmly. I think I'll stay. Dad's eyes widened slightly. Look, son. No, you look, I said, keeping my voice steady but firm. I flew 2,500 miles to be here. I paid $12,000 for this venue. I'm going in. My brother stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. Dad said, I don't care what Dad said, I replied, not backing down. I care what I did, which was make this entire night possible. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Want to see the transfer? Want to call the event manager over and ask who paid the deposit? Because I'm happy to clear that up right now. My brother scoffed. Always about money with you, isn't it? I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer audacity. That's rich coming from the guy who hasn't paid his own phone bill in 3 years. Tell me, how's that creative process going? Reached level 100 in League yet? He flushed red, but didn't have a comeback. Funny how people who leech off others never seem to have a good defense when called out directly. Dad tried another approach. Son, please, it's my birthday. Oh, I'm well aware, I cut in. I have the credit card statement to prove it, along with statements for the last 6 birthdays, Christmases, and that time you absolutely needed a new fishing boat because, and I quote, it would help with your depression. How's that working out, by the way? Because from where I'm standing, seems like the only thing that was depressed was my bank account. The waiter who'd been pretending not to listen was now openly watching, a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. I caught his eye. Excuse me, I said. Could you please tell my aunt, the one talking to that blonde with more filler than personality, That her nephew would like to speak with her outside? Just say it's about a surprise for my dad. My aunt's always had a soft spot for me, that's why I called her. My pleasure, sir, he replied with a knowing look that suggested he'd worked enough family events to recognize drama when he saw it. What are you doing? Dad hissed. Getting back up, I said simply. Or did you think I was going to just hand over 12 grand and slink back to Boston without even getting a slice of cake? That's not how investments work, Dad. Even bad ones. My stepmom had noticed the commotion and was watching nervously from inside, clutching her designer purse like I might try to repossess it. Not a bad idea, actually, considering I probably paid for it. You're making a scene, my brother muttered. No, I'm standing in a hallway having a conversation, I replied. A scene would be me walking in there and announcing to everyone that the open bar they're enjoying was courtesy of the son who wasn't good enough to invite. But don't worry, I'm not going to do that. I paused. Yet! My aunt appeared moments later, face lighting up when she saw me. There you are! We were wondering when you'd arrive. She hugged me tightly, then looked confused at the tension in the air. What's going on? Apparently I'm not on the guest list, I said calmly, for the party I paid for. Her smile fell. What? Dad was just explaining how I'm not real family because I live in Boston. You know, the job I took so I could afford to fund his retirement and my brother's gaming addiction. My aunt's eyes narrowed as she looked between Dad and me. Is this true? She asked him. Dad looked trapped. It's complicated. It's really not, I interrupted. Either I'm welcome at a party I organized and funded, or I'm not. And if I'm not, I think everyone inside should know exactly what kind of celebration they're enjoying. I'm thinking a toast would be appropriate, don't you? Dad blanched. He knew I had receipts, literal and figurative. You wouldn't, my brother said, but he sounded uncertain. Try me, I replied. I've got nothing to lose at this point. You guys made sure of that when you decided I wasn't family enough to attend, but was definitely family enough to foot the bill. Kind of like how I wasn't family enough to be invited to Thanksgiving last year, but was family enough to pay for stepmom's emergency root canal the next week. Funny how that works. My aunt looked stunned. Of course you're welcome. This is ridiculous. She linked her arm through mine. You're coming in with me, right now. Aunt, maybe we should discuss this privately, my brother started. Oh, I think we're done discussing, she cut in with a tone that brooked no argument. My aunt had always been a force of nature. Your brother flew across the country and paid for this entire event. He's coming in. My brother started to protest, but Dad cut him off with a look. He knew when he was cornered. Fine, he muttered. But don't make a scene. I'm not the one who created this scene, I replied, walking past him with my aunt. I'm just the one who refused to be the punchline. As we entered, I saw several heads turn. The whispers started immediately. My stepmom's face fell when she realized I was coming in. My aunt, bless her, made sure to walk me right up to her. Look who I found being turned away at the door, she said loudly. Can you believe someone forgot to put his name on the guest list after he arranged everything? My stepmom's smile was so stiff, it looked like it might crack her foundation. Oh, what a terrible oversight. So glad you could make it. Wouldn't have missed it for the world, I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Nice necklace, by the way. Reminds me of the one I saw when my credit card statement showed a charge at Tiffany's last Christmas. What a coincidence. She touched the diamond pendant nervously. Your father has excellent taste. Yes, in jewelry. Not so much in party guests, apparently. I turned away before she could respond and headed for the bar. If I was going to get through this evening, I needed a soda. Maybe with a little umbrella in it, just to mark the occasion. What's really going on? My aunt whispered as we walked through the crowd. 6 years of financial abuse followed by the ultimate slap in the face, I said under my breath. I've sent them almost $250,000, and they tried to keep me out of a party I literally paid for. Her eyes widened. $250,000. Yes, I've got all the receipts. Every transfer, every text, every broken promise to pay it back when things stabilize. Jesus Christ, she breathed. And tonight? Just the icing on the cake. They didn't think I'd actually show up. Thought they could take the money and have their perfect party without the inconvenience of my presence. She squeezed my arm. What are you going to do? I smiled grimly. I'm going to enjoy the party I paid for. Stay close to me, she said. I've got your back. For the next hour, I circulated through the party, calm and composed on the outside while my mind was racing. Every time someone said, amazing party, or your dad must be so happy, I just smiled and replied with gems like, he should be, cost enough to put a down payment on a house, or nothing but the best for dad, that's my motto, and his apparently when it's on my dime. I caught my aunt talking intensely with a couple other relatives, occasionally looking my way. Word was spreading. My uncle caught my eye from across the room and raised his glass in silent solidarity. Then he deliberately turned his back on my dad. Small gestures, but they didn't go unnoticed. My phone buzzed with a text from my aunt. Told your uncles what happened. They're pissed. Uncle R wants details about the money. Also, your cousin is sitting with your brother to keep him from making a scene. Team U is assembling. I smiled at that. Team U. Maybe I wasn't as alone in this family as I thought. I noticed my dad watching me nervously from across the room, clearly waiting for me to cause a scene. My brother had stationed himself protectively near the DJ booth, as if I might try to hijack the music. If he only knew what I was actually planning. My stepmom kept trying to steer important guests away from me whenever I got close, which was honestly hilarious to watch. Oh, you must see the photo display over here, she'd say loudly, practically dragging people away mid-conversation. I played it cool, biding my time. I knew exactly when my moment would come. I wasn't going to waste the chance to say my piece, not after flying 2,500 miles and spending 6 years being the family piggy bank. The DJ caught my eye and nodded slightly. The cake was being wheeled in. Showtime. Dinner was winding down. The cake was being prepared in the kitchen. According to the schedule I had literally planned, it was almost time for toasts. The DJ announced, and now, some words from family and friends to celebrate our guest of honor. A few people spoke. Dad's bowling buddy told a story about their glory days. His sister shared a childhood memory. My stepmom gushed about what an amazing man he was, and how lucky she felt. Then, before my brother could grab the microphone as planned, my aunt stood up. I believe my nephew has something to say, she announced, looking directly at me. After all, he made this whole evening possible. There was a smattering of applause as I walked to the front. Dad looked like he was about to have a heart attack. My stepmom was frantically whispering to my brother, who started to stand up but was yanked back down by my uncle. I took the microphone, smiled, and raised my glass. I'd like to propose a toast to my father on his 65th birthday, I began smoothly. Dad, our relationship has changed a lot over the years. I've been thinking about how to mark this occasion, and I realized the best gift I could give you is honesty. I paused, looking around the room. When Dad called me about this party, I was thrilled. I was happy to help plan it, happy to cover the entire $12,000 cost of the venue and catering, happy to fly across the country to be here. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people looked confused. What many of you might not know is that for the past 6 years, I've been helping Dad financially. It started with small things. His truck needed repairs, there were medical bills. That was no problem. I was glad to help the man who raised me. I pulled out my phone. But over time, the requests grew. The gratitude shrank. Dad and my stepmom began to expect regular financial support from me. I looked directly at Dad now. In total, over the past 6 years, I've given you $237,482. I have every transfer documented. Every text where you promised it was just until things settle down. Every email thanking me for the temporary help that somehow became permanent. The room was dead silent now. Despite all this, when I showed up tonight, after flying across the country, taking time off work, buying a new suit, I was told I wasn't on the guest list. I was told I wasn't real family, just the ATM funding the lifestyle you see around you. I gestured to the elegant room. So happy birthday, Dad. My gift to you is the truth. Everyone here now knows exactly who paid for this party. Everyone knows exactly how you treat your own son. I raised my glass higher. To clarity, to reality, and to finally being free of financial exploitation, disguised as family obligation. I took a sip and set down my glass. The silence was absolute. Then I turned to the room. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. The cake is excellent. I picked the flavor myself during the planning calls. I walked calmly toward the exit. As I passed my aunt, she squeezed my shoulder in silent support. My uncle gave me a solemn nod. Behind me, chaos erupted. My stepmom was on her feet, shouting that I was lying. My brother was trying to grab the microphone. Dad just sat there, staring at his plate. But I didn't look back. I walked out with my head high, the weight of 6 years finally off my shoulders. In the days that followed, the fallout was predictable. Dad's messages evolved from furious to desperate as the financial reality set in. Stepmom was suddenly re-evaluating their relationship, now that the money train had derailed. My brother had to deal with Dad's increasing panic about bills. How could you do this to me? After everything I've done for you? This is a massive misunderstanding. Call me. The mortgage is due next week. I thought we had an understanding. Then, stepmom's talking about moving out. Is that what you wanted? I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. Please, son. I read each message but responded to none. 6 years of being manipulated and used had been more than enough. Family members I barely knew started reaching out, some to criticize me for humiliating Dad, others to quietly admit they'd suspected something wasn't right for years. My cousin called. Look, I've got to ask. Was all that stuff you said true? Every single word, I said. Every dollar, every broken promise. Jesus, he muttered. I always wondered how Uncle was affording all that stuff on his pension, but I figured maybe he had investments or something. His only investment was me, I said. For what it's worth, he said, before hanging up. I think you got screwed over. Bad. My aunt, Dad's sister, left a voicemail. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I always knew something wasn't right with that woman. Your father was never like this before her. Call me if you need anything. I appreciated the support, but it came too late. Where were these people when Dad was draining my accounts for years? Why had no one questioned how a retired construction worker was suddenly living like he had a six-figure income? The most surprising call came from my uncle, Dad's brother, who I'd always thought didn't like me much. I saw what happened at the party, he said gruffly. Your old man was out of line. Thanks for backing me up in there, I said. The look on your stepmom's face when you dropped that number, priceless. Your dad should have never let it get to that point. No, he shouldn't have, I agreed. Your grandfather was a real piece of work, you know, my uncle continued. Used your dad as free labor in his business for years, promised him partnership, then sold the company without giving him a dime. Your dad swore he'd never be like that with his own kids. The irony wasn't lost on me. Guess some patterns are hard to break. Maybe, my uncle said, but you broke it. Good for you. I responded to none of Dad's increasingly desperate texts. Instead, I took the money I'd been setting aside for Dad's next inevitable emergency, a cool $10,000 that was earmarked for whatever crisis would surely arise, and booked a trip I'd been putting off for years. I didn't even bother flying back to Boston first, changed my return flight to Portland, and spent 2 weeks backpacking through national parks in the Pacific Northwest. No phone, no emails, no family drama, just me, nature, and the freedom of knowing that my finances were my own again. When I got back, tanned and more at peace than I'd been in years, there was a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten, from Dad. Son, I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was wrong on every level. The party was stepmom's idea. She thought having you there would be awkward after you and I argued about the kitchen remodel. I should have stood up to her. I should have stood up for you. The truth is, I've been drowning for years. First in debt, then in lies to cover that debt. It was so easy to lean on you because you never said no. Never made me feel small for asking. And I took advantage of that in the worst way. Stepmom left last week, took what she could carry and cleared out our joint account. Your brother's furious with both of us. You for cutting off the money, me for not having a backup plan. He's moving in with friends next month. I've put the house on the market. It's too much for me anyway, and I need to start paying you back. I know it will take the rest of my life to make things right financially, but I have to try. I miss who we used to be. I miss who I used to be before I became this person I don't recognize. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No expectations, no requests, just a dad who failed his son and hopes someday to make amends. Love always, Dad. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Maybe someday I'd be ready to talk to him again. Maybe I'd even be able to forgive him. But not today. Today, I was calling a financial advisor to set up a retirement account for myself. Today, I was finally putting myself first. People ask if I regret how things went down. I don't. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I helped because I genuinely wanted to. Because I remembered the dad who worked double shifts to buy me baseball equipment and drove me to college in our beat-up truck. But that man is gone, replaced by someone who saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM, willing to exclude me from a celebration I paid for because my actual presence wasn't valuable to him, just my wallet. Sometimes the clearest way to show someone their behavior is to simply hold up a mirror. No sneaking around, no elaborate schemes. Just standing tall, looking them in the eye, and speaking your truth. And sometimes, the best birthday gift you can give is the gift of reality. Story 2. Maybe next year you'll be invited. My sister laughed about the family reunion. I smiled and agreed. Next year, they'll also need a new co-signer for their house. Wonder who they'll ask. I, 34, male, have spent my adult life as my family's invisible safety net. The reliable guy who never asks for anything, but always gets called when bills need paying or crises need fixing. My family, parents Robert and Linda, early 60s, and golden child sister Stephanie, 37. Growing up middle class in Ohio, the favoritism was crystal clear from day one. Stephanie made cheerleading, front page family news, I won the state science fair twice? That's nice, honey. Immediate pivot to whatever boy Stephanie was dating. The pattern solidified in high school. Stephanie got a Honda Civic dad, lovingly restored for her 16th birthday. My 16th? A lecture about responsibility and a Goodwill bike. Her graduation party had 150 people and catering. Mine was pizza with family. And mom spent it on the phone with Stephanie about her college roommate drama. College was where things went nuclear. Stephanie needed the full college experience at an expensive private school. Cue the second mortgage. I went to state school on academic scholarships, worked 2 jobs, graduated debt-free with a computer science degree. Stephanie graduated with communications and $80,000 in loans that mysteriously became family debt because we all benefited from her education. Still trying to decode that logic. Post-college, I landed a tech job in Columbus, lived cheap, saved everything. Stephanie bounced between jobs, always seeking something more fulfilling or escaping toxic work environments. The first money request came when I was 23, $500 for car repairs so she could get to her new job. 11 years later, still waiting for that payback. But that $500 opened the floodgates. Suddenly, I became the family ATM. Stephanie's rent, credit cards, groceries, plus my parents' water heater, car repairs, property taxes. Every time it was a temporary loan, just until we get back on our feet. The paybacks never materialized, and asking meant guilt trips and drama, so I stopped asking. By 30, I was making $200,000 annually, thanks to startup stock options and freelance consulting. My family didn't know exact numbers, but they knew I was doing well. Well enough that when Stephanie announced her engagement to Derek, I somehow became wedding planner and banker. Venue deposit, catering, flowers, photographer, $45,000 total that they'd pay back once settled. Derek deserves special mention. He's perpetually launching the next big thing that'll make him rich. Insurance agency, cryptocurrency, day trading, MLM energy drinks. Zero actual profits, but he talks a great game, and Stephanie's smitten. Post-wedding, I was co-signing leases, paying deposits, covering monthly shortfalls when Derek's latest venture inevitably collapsed. It's clockwork now. Derek calls with sob stories about unpaid clients or failed investments, needing help just this one time. Welcome to my life as the family's permanent unpaid financial advisor / ATM / emotional support system. The invisible safety net that everyone counts on, but nobody really sees. The breaking point should have been when they decided to buy a house. They'd been renting for 3 years, had terrible credit, and Derek's employment history looked like a game of career hopscotch. No bank would touch them for a mortgage. That's when Mom called me with a favor to ask. "Bryce, honey, you know how much Stephanie and Derek want to start a family," she began, using that guilt-laden tone that had been perfected over decades of practice. They really need a stable place to raise children, but their credit isn't quite where it needs to be yet. I knew where this was going before she finished the sentence. They found this perfect house in Worthington. You know, good schools, safe neighborhood, but they need someone with good credit to co-sign the mortgage. Just temporarily, until Derek's new business takes off and they can refinance on their own. I should have said no. I should have hung up the phone. I should have learned from the decade of temporary loans that had never been repaid. Instead, I found myself at a mortgage broker's office 2 weeks later, signing papers that made me legally responsible for a $300,000 home loan. The house was nice. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, big yard, attached garage. Everything a young couple could want. Stephanie cried when they handed her the keys, talking about how grateful she was and how this was going to change their lives. Derek shook my hand and promised this was the last time they'd ever need my help. That was 2 years ago. Since then, I've made the mortgage payment 7 times when Derek's income was temporarily interrupted. I've paid for a new roof when theirs leaked, replaced their HVAC system when it died during a heat wave, and covered property taxes twice when they forgot to save for them. All told, I've probably put another $30,000 into that house, on top of co-signing the original loan. But here's the thing. They've never once acknowledged what I've done for them. In their minds, I'm just the family member who has money. So of course I should help. It's not seen as a sacrifice or a favor. It's seen as my obligation. Like I owe them something for the privilege of being related to them. The family dynamics never changed either. At every gathering, Stephanie was still the star. Her job at the pharmaceutical company was so important. Her husband was so smart and ambitious. Their plans to start a family were so exciting. Meanwhile, I was still just Bryce, the computer guy who didn't have much to contribute to conversations about normal people things. I didn't date much. partly because I was always working, and partly because I'd been burned a few times by women who seemed more interested in my financial stability than in me as a person. My family saw this as proof that I was antisocial or too picky. Mom was constantly trying to set me up with daughters of her friends or coworkers, usually with the sales pitch that these women were looking for a stable, responsible man. Translation: they needed someone to pay their bills. The isolation got worse over time. Family dinners became exercises in listening to Stephanie and Derek's latest plans, while everyone ignored my attempts to contribute to conversations. Holiday celebrations were all about what Stephanie and Derek wanted to do. Birthday parties, anniversaries, special occasions. I was invited as an afterthought, expected to contribute financially, but not really welcome as an equal participant. I started declining invitations, claiming work obligations or other commitments. This led to lectures about family loyalty and responsibility, but it also meant less time listening to Derek explain his newest get-rich-quick scheme, or watching Stephanie get praised for accomplishments that I'd helped finance. The final straw started building 6 months ago, when I overheard a phone conversation between Mom and Stephanie. I'd come by to help Dad fix their garbage disposal. Another one of those casual expectations that I'd drop everything to help with household problems. I was in the kitchen working when Mom started talking to Stephanie in the living room, not realizing I could hear every word. "Bryce is getting weird," Mom was saying. "He barely comes around anymore, and when he does, he's so quiet. I'm worried he's becoming one of those bitter single men who just focuses on work." "He's always been antisocial," Stephanie replied. I could hear the dismissive tone even from the next room. "At least he's useful for helping with stuff. Did you see the new patio furniture Derek picked out? We're going to need Bryce to cover the gap until Derek's next commission check comes through." I stopped working and listened. "You should probably call him this week," Mom continued. "Make it sound like we really need his help, you know? He responds better when he thinks it's an emergency." My hands were shaking as I packed up my tools. I'd been played. For years, I'd been manipulated into thinking my family needed me, that I was helping them through temporary rough patches. In reality, I was just the family ATM, and they were discussing the best ways to manipulate me into making more withdrawals. I finished fixing the disposal in silence, told Dad it was working, and left without saying goodbye to Mom. I spent that entire evening sitting in my apartment, going through bank statements and calculating how much money I'd given my family over the years. The number was staggering, close to $200,000 in direct payments, co-signed loans, and covered expenses. $200,000, and they saw me as an antisocial obligation who existed to solve their financial problems. That's when I started making changes. Subtle ones at first. I stopped answering Derek's calls about mortgage payments. When Stephanie texted about needing help with groceries, I claimed to be busy with work. When Mom called about helping with their property taxes, I said I was traveling for business. The protests started immediately. How could I be so selfish? Didn't I understand that family helps family? What was wrong with me lately? But I held firm. I started saying no, and it felt liberating. Then came the family reunion. Every 3 years, my dad's side of the family holds a big reunion. It's usually about 50 to 60 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, their kids. They rent out a pavilion at a state park. Everyone brings food. There are games and activities for the kids. It's actually pretty fun. Or it was when I was younger and didn't understand the family dynamics. I hadn't been to the last reunion because I'd been dealing with a major project at work, but I assumed I'd be invited to this one. 3 months before the event, I started hearing snippets of conversation about planning and preparation. Stephanie was on the organizing committee, Mom was coordinating food, Dad was handling logistics. 2 months before the reunion, I asked Mom when I should block out time for it. "Oh, honey," she said with that practiced, sympathetic look. "We weren't sure if you'd want to come. You've been so busy with work lately, and you know how these family things can be. Lots of kids running around. People asking personal questions about when you're going to settle down. We thought you might be more comfortable skipping this one." I stared at her. "You thought I'd be more comfortable being excluded?" "It's not excluded," she said quickly. "It's just, well, space is limited this year, and we had to make some tough decisions about who to invite." "Space is limited? It's a public pavilion." "Well, yes, but there are cost considerations too. Food, activities, decorations. Everyone who comes has to contribute, and we know money's been tight for you lately." Money's been tight. For me, the person who'd been subsidizing their lifestyle for over a decade. I almost laughed. "How much is the contribution?" I asked. "It's $75 per person," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Plus whatever you bring for the potluck. $75. I'd probably spent more than that on lunch that week, and they were concerned I couldn't afford to contribute to a family reunion. Who made the decision about who to invite? I asked. The organizing committee, she said. Stephanie, your Aunt Carol, Uncle Mike, and me. We tried to balance family participation with practical considerations. And the practical consideration was that I couldn't afford $75? She shifted uncomfortably. Bryce, you know that's not... It's just that you haven't seemed interested in family events lately. You thought wrong, I said. I'm interested. I'd like to come. Well, I'll have to check with the committee, she said. Maybe we can figure something out. Maybe. Maybe they could figure out how to include their own son and brother in a family reunion. That night, I called Stephanie directly. Mom says there might not be room for me at the reunion, I said, without preamble. Oh, Bryce, she sighed, like I was being difficult. You never come to family stuff anymore. We didn't think you'd want to come to this either. But you didn't ask. Come on, be honest. Would you have come? You hate those things. All those kids running around, Uncle Mike asking about your love life, the cousins talking about their jobs and mortgages. It's not really your scene. It's a family reunion, Stephanie. My scene is being part of the family. She laughed. Not a mean laugh, but the kind of dismissive chuckle you give to a child who said something naive. Bryce, you barely tolerate spending 2 hours at Christmas dinner. 3 days of camping with the whole extended family? Please. You'd be miserable. And you'd make everyone else miserable too. So, you decided for me? We made a practical decision. Space is limited. Costs had to be controlled. And honestly, the family dynamics work better when it's just the social people. You know what I mean? I knew exactly what she meant. The family dynamics worked better when the antisocial ATM wasn't there to make anyone feel awkward about their constant financial requests. Maybe next year you'll be invited, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Like she was doing me a favor by considering me for future inclusion. Once we see how this one goes, we might be able to work you in. Maybe next year. Like I was on a waiting list for my own family. I understand, I said calmly. Thanks for explaining. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking about that conversation. Thinking about the mortgage payments, the wedding costs, the countless emergencies I'd funded. Thinking about being described as someone who made family dynamics worse by existing. Then I started thinking about that mortgage I'd co-signed. The one that made me legally responsible for their housing costs. The one that showed up on my credit report as a major debt obligation. The one that had prevented me from buying my own house because my debt-to-income ratio was too high with their mortgage factored in. I pulled out my copy of the mortgage documents and read through them carefully. The loan was structured so that Stephanie and Derek were the primary borrowers. But I was equally liable for the full amount. If they defaulted, the bank could come after me for the entire balance. More importantly, I had the right to remove myself as co-signer if I provided 30 days written notice, and the primary borrowers could qualify for the loan on their own. They couldn't qualify on their own. That's why they'd needed me in the first place. And their financial situation had only gotten worse since then. Derek's latest business venture, some kind of online marketing consulting firm, was bringing in maybe $1,500 a month on a good month. Stephanie made decent money at her pharmaceutical job, but not enough to carry a $300,000 mortgage and their lifestyle expenses. Without my co-signature, they'd have maybe 30 days to either refinance the loan or sell the house. Given their credit and income situation, refinancing was impossible. They'd have to sell, probably at a loss since they'd only lived there 2 years and had barely made a dent in the principal. I spent the next week researching the legal implications and talking to a lawyer about the process. Everything was straightforward. I could remove myself from the loan with proper notice, and there was nothing Stephanie or Derek could do to stop me. The only question was timing. The family reunion was scheduled for the second weekend in August. I decided to send the co-signer removal notice on August 1st, right in the middle of their reunion planning activities. It seemed poetic somehow. They could discuss my exclusion from the family while dealing with the consequences of that exclusion. The letter was simple and professional. Dear Stephanie and Derek, this letter serves as my formal 30-day notice of intent to remove myself as co-signer on your mortgage loan number with First National Bank. As per the terms of the original loan agreement, this removal will be effective September 1st, 2023. You will need to contact First National Bank immediately to discuss your options for refinancing the loan without a co-signer or making arrangements for loan payoff. Please confirm receipt of this notice. Sincerely, Bryce. I sent copies to them, to the bank, and kept one for my records. Then I waited. The phone call started 3 hours later. Bryce, what the hell is this? Derek's voice was tight with panic. We just got your letter. You can't just remove yourself from the mortgage. We have a contract. The contract allows for co-signer removal with proper notice, I said calmly. I've provided proper notice. But why? What's this about? If this is about money, we can work something out. The marketing business is really starting to take off, and Stephanie's up for a promotion. We'll be able to make all the payments ourselves soon. When? Well, it's hard to say exactly, but probably within the next few months. Maybe by Christmas. Definitely by next summer. Derek, you've been telling me your business was about to take off for 2 years. In that time, I've made 7 mortgage payments for you, plus covered property taxes twice, and paid for a new roof and HVAC system. I'm done. Bryce, please. This is our home. We can't just lose our house because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm setting boundaries. What boundaries? We're family. Family that doesn't invite me to family reunions? There was silence on the other end. That's what this is about? The reunion? Bryce, that was just a space issue. We can still work something out if you really want to come. I don't want to come, Derek. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You can't treat someone like they don't matter and then expect them to keep funding your lifestyle. We never said you don't matter. You're being ridiculous. Look, forget about the reunion. That was Stephanie's decision anyway. I'll talk to her. We'll figure it out. Just don't pull the co-signer thing. Please. The notice has been sent. You have 30 days to refinance or sell. I hung up. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. Stephanie called 20 minutes later, alternating between tears and anger. Bryce, you can't do this. This is our home. Derek's business is just starting to work, and I'm pregnant. That stopped me cold. You're pregnant? 8 weeks. We were going to announce it at the reunion. She was crying now, real tears. We've been trying for 2 years, and it finally happened. You can't take our house away from us when we're about to have a baby. I felt a stab of guilt, but pushed it aside. Congratulations on the pregnancy, Stephanie. But that doesn't change the situation. You have 30 days to figure out your housing situation. Bryce, please. I'm begging you. The reunion thing was stupid. I admit it. We should have invited you. We can fix that. But don't punish our unborn child because you're mad at us. I'm not punishing your child. I'm removing myself from a financial obligation that I should never have taken on in the first place. But where are we supposed to go? We can't afford rent on a place big enough for a family, and our credit is still bad. We'll end up in some terrible apartment in a bad neighborhood. You'll figure it out. You always do. How can you be so cold? This is your nephew or niece we're talking about. It's also my financial future. I've been carrying your expenses for over a decade, Stephanie. I've given up opportunities, delayed buying my own home, put my life on hold to fund yours. I'm done. She hung up on me. My parents called that evening, both of them on the line, voices carefully controlled. Bryce, Dad began. Stephanie told us about the letter. This seems pretty extreme, don't you think? Not really. I'm removing myself from a financial obligation. That's pretty normal. Son, we raised you to be better than this, Mom said, her voice thick with disappointment. Family doesn't abandon family when things get tough. You mean like how you abandoned me when I wasn't invited to the family reunion? That was different, Dad said quickly. That was just logistics. This is their home, their future. Stephanie's pregnant, Bryce. This is your family we're talking about. No, it's your family. I'm apparently just the outsider who pays for things. Bryce, honey, Mom's voice took on that manipulative tone I knew so well. You're being hurt and emotional right now. We understand that. But making financial decisions when you're upset isn't smart. Why don't you withdraw the letter, and we can all sit down and talk about this like adults? I've been talking to you like adults for 15 years, Mom. Every time you needed money. Every time Stephanie had an emergency. Every time Derek's business fell through. I talked, you took, and nothing ever changed. I'm done talking. So you're going to make your pregnant sister homeless out of spite? Dad's voice was getting harder now. I'm going to stop enabling your daughter's financial irresponsibility. There's a difference. Bryce, think about what you're doing, Mom pleaded. This isn't just about Stephanie and Derek. This affects the whole family. If they lose the house, they'll have to move in with us. Dad's back problems are getting worse, and we can't handle having a baby in the house. Please, just give them more time. How much more time? It's been 2 years, Mom. Derek's business isn't working. Stephanie's spending habits haven't changed. Their credit is still terrible. How much more time is supposed to fix problems they've had for their entire adult lives. Just until after the baby comes, she said desperately. Give them until after the baby comes to get back on their feet. And then what? When the baby's here and they need money for childcare, medical expenses, a bigger car, all the things that come with having a child? Do I keep the co-signature then too? Silence. This conversation is over, I said. The notice stands. The next 3 weeks were brutal. The calls came daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Stephanie crying about the stress of house hunting while pregnant. Derek alternating between anger and desperate bargaining. My parents trying different approaches. Guilt, manipulation, threats, promises. They tried involving other family members too. Aunt Carol called to lecture me about family loyalty. Uncle Mike left a voicemail about how disappointed he was in my selfishness. Cousin Jennifer sent a long email about how my actions were affecting the whole family's relationship dynamics. But here's the thing. None of them offered to help. None of them volunteered to co-sign a new loan or provide financial assistance to Stephanie and Derek. They were all very concerned about my moral obligations, but none of them seemed willing to take on any obligations themselves. The reunion happened without me, of course. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Everyone looking happy and relaxed, kids playing games, adults sitting around talking. Stephanie was there, showing off her tiny baby bump, accepting congratulations and sympathy for her housing situation. I wondered if anyone asked where I was. I wondered if they discussed my removal from the mortgage during their family bonding time. I wondered if any of them felt even a little bit guilty about excluding me and then expecting me to keep funding their lives. Probably not. On August 25th, with 6 days left before my co-signer removal became effective, Derek called with what he clearly thought was a brilliant solution. Bryce, I talked to a guy who knows about real estate, and he says we can probably get a private mortgage from an investor. The interest rate would be higher, but we could qualify without a co-signer. That sounds like a great solution, I said. The thing is, we need $15,000 up front for the loan fees and closing costs. I know that sounds like a lot, but it would solve everything. We could pay you back over the next year, and then you'd be completely off the hook for the house. I actually laughed out loud. Derek, you want me to give you $15,000 so you can get a loan to replace the loan I'm co-signed on? It's not giving, it's lending. And it's a solution that works for everyone. You get out of the mortgage obligation, we keep the house, everybody wins. Everybody except me, who'd be out another $15,000 that you'd never pay back. We would pay it back. This is different. How is it different? Because it would be a smaller amount, and my business is really picking up now, and Stephanie's promotion came through. We'd have the cash flow to handle it. Derek, if your cash flow had improved, you'd be able to make your mortgage payments without me covering them. Those were special circumstances. The business has seasonal fluctuations, and the answer is no. Bryce, please. Stephanie's stress levels are through the roof. The doctor says too much stress could affect the pregnancy. Do you really want to be responsible if something happens to your nephew? I'm not responsible for Stephanie's stress levels, Derek. You are. You're the one who's failed to provide stable housing for your pregnant wife. How can you say that? I've been busting my ass trying to build something. Just because it's taken longer than expected doesn't mean... It means you're not reliable, Derek. It means you make promises you can't keep and commitments you can't honor. It means I'm done trusting you with my financial security. He hung up on me. September 1st came and went quietly. I received a confirmation letter from the bank acknowledging my removal as co-signer. The mortgage was now solely Stephanie and Derek's responsibility. They stopped calling me after that. The family pressure continued for another week or two, but eventually that faded too. I think they realized I wasn't going to change my mind, and there was no point in continuing to waste energy on trying to manipulate me. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they were looking at smaller rental houses, trying to find something they could afford on their own. Stephanie had to give up some of the lifestyle elements she'd gotten used to. The nice neighborhood, the big yard, the attached garage. Reality was setting in. In October, I got a text from Mom. Stephanie and Derek found a rental. 3-bedroom house in Whitehall. Not the nicest area, but it's affordable and close to Stephanie's work. Baby is due in March. I didn't respond, but I was relieved they'd found something. Despite everything, I didn't actually want them to be homeless. In November, I bought my own house. With my improved debt-to-income ratio, I was able to get approved for a mortgage on a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in Upper Arlington. Nothing extravagant, but nice. Good neighborhood, great schools for the future, big backyard, 2-car garage. Everything I'd wanted but couldn't afford while I was carrying Stephanie's mortgage. I posted a few pictures on social media after I moved in. Just casual shots of my new home office and the backyard. The response was interesting. Lots of congratulations from work colleagues and friends, but complete silence from my family. At Christmas, I received a generic holiday card from my parents with a brief handwritten note. Hope you're well. Love, Mom and Dad. No invitation to Christmas dinner, no attempt to reconcile, just acknowledgement that I existed. Stephanie didn't send anything. I spent Christmas Day volunteering at a homeless shelter, serving meals and helping organize donations. It felt better than any family gathering I could remember, being around people who were genuinely grateful for help, who understood what it meant to struggle, who didn't take generosity for granted. In February, Mom called to tell me Stephanie had had the baby, a healthy boy they named Tyler. She sent me a picture via text, and I'll admit it hit me harder than I expected. He was tiny and perfect, and for a moment I felt a pang of regret about not being part of his life. But then I remembered all the years of being treated like a walking ATM, all the times my own needs and feelings had been dismissed, all the casual cruelty of being excluded from my own family while still being expected to fund their lifestyle. I sent back a brief congratulations and deleted the picture. 3 months later, in May, Derek called me for the first time since September. His voice was different, humbler, more defeated. Bryce, I know we haven't talked in a while, and I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to ask you something. I didn't say anything. The baby's been having some health issues. Nothing life-threatening, but expensive. Stephanie's on maternity leave, so money's really tight. We're behind on rent, and our landlord is starting to make noise about eviction. Still nothing from me. I'm not asking for a handout, he continued quickly. I know those days are over, but I was wondering, do you know anyone in real estate who might be hiring? I'm thinking about getting out of the consulting business, maybe getting a real job with steady income. I'd take anything, assistant, paperwork, whatever. I just need something reliable. This was the first time in 15 years that Derek had asked me for help finding work instead of asking for money. I might know someone, I said finally. Send me your resume and I'll see what I can do. Really? Bryce, thank you. I mean it. This could really turn things around for us. I did know someone, a colleague who'd started a property management company, was looking for someone to handle tenant relations and maintenance coordination. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and the pay was decent. Derek got the job. 3 weeks later, he called to thank me again and let me know he was doing well, that having a regular paycheck was helping them get caught up on expenses. I should have done this years ago, he admitted. All that time chasing big dreams when I should have been focusing on taking care of my family. I get it now. I hoped he did. 6 months later, Derek called again. This time, his voice had a confidence I'd never heard before. Bryce, I wanted to thank you, he said. And I wanted to apologize. For everything. The way we treated you, the money stuff, all of it. I've been doing some thinking, and I realize how unfair we were to you. Okay, I said, not sure where this was going. The thing is, having a real job, having to actually show up and be responsible every day, it's made me understand some things about myself, about how I was living before. I was basically a child, letting other people, you, handle the adult responsibilities while I played around with fantasy businesses. Derek, let me finish, please. I know I can't pay you back for everything. We calculated it out, and it's close to $200,000 over the years. That's insane, Bryce. I can't believe we took that much from you. Actually, it was closer to $250,000, but I didn't correct him. But I want to start paying you back anyway, he continued. Even if it takes 20 years. We're putting together a payment plan. Maybe $200 a month to start. More as we get our finances in order. It's not much, but it's something. Derek, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because here's the thing I figured out. You weren't just giving us money all those years. You were giving us the chance to avoid growing up, to avoid taking responsibility for our choices. And that wasn't helping us in the long run. He paused. Stephanie's been doing some thinking too. She wants to call you, but she's scared. She knows she messed up, especially with the reunion thing. That was... God, Bryce, I can't believe we excluded you from a family event and then expected you to keep paying our mortgage. That's so screwed up. Yeah, it was. Would you be open to talking to her? She's different now. Having Tyler, almost losing the house, it changed her perspective on things. She knows she took you for granted. I thought about it. Maybe, I said finally. But Derek? No more loans. No more financial help. That part is over permanently. I understand. And Bryce? Thank you. For everything. I know we didn't deserve it, but you kept us afloat for years. We wouldn't have made it without you. After we hung up, I sat in my home office, looking out at my backyard, thinking about the conversation. It was the first time Derek had ever acknowledged the full extent of what I'd done for them, The first time anyone in my family had recognized the sacrifices I'd made. It felt good. Not good enough to erase 15 years of being taken for granted, but good enough to crack open the door to the possibility of forgiveness someday. 2 weeks later, Stephanie called. Bryce? It's me. I recognized her voice, but it sounded different. Older, maybe, more tentative. Hi, Stephanie. I don't really know where to start. Derek said you two talked, and he told me what he said about paying you back and everything. I wanted to call and say, well, a lot of things. She took a breath. First, I'm sorry. For all of it. For taking your money. For taking you for granted. For treating you like you didn't matter. For the reunion thing especially. That was cruel, and I knew it was cruel when we decided it. But I told myself it was practical. That you wouldn't want to come anyway. Why didn't you want me there, Stephanie? Honestly. Because you made me feel guilty. Every time I saw you, I was reminded of how much you'd done for us, and how little we'd done for you. It was easier to exclude you than to face that reality. At least she was being honest. And I was jealous, she continued. Here you were, always having your life together, always being responsible, always being successful. And I was the older sister who couldn't keep a job, couldn't manage money, couldn't even afford to live without my little brother's help. It was embarrassing. So you decided the solution was to treat me worse? I decided the solution was to pretend it wasn't happening. To pretend we were equals, that you helping us was just normal family stuff and not something extraordinary. It was easier than admitting I was the screw-up. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about Tyler, about how being a mother had forced her to think about responsibility and priorities in ways she never had before. She talked about the stress of almost losing their housing, about Derek's transformation since getting a real job, about the budget they were living on now, and how different their lives looked. I want you to meet Tyler, she said toward the end of the conversation. When you're ready. No pressure and no agenda. Just, he's your nephew, and I think he should know his uncle. But only if you want to. I'd like that, I said, and meant it. And Bryce, Derek told you about the payment plan, right? We know it's not nearly enough, and it'll take forever, but we want to start somewhere. You don't have to do that, Stephanie. Yes, we do. Because Derek was right. You weren't just giving us money. You were enabling us to avoid growing up, and that needed to stop, for our sake as much as yours. After we hung up, I realized something had shifted. Not back to the old dynamic. That was gone forever. But towards something new. Something that might actually resemble a healthy family relationship. A month later, I met Tyler for the first time. He was 6 months old, chubby and alert, with Derek's dark hair and Stephanie's blue eyes. Stephanie and Derek had invited me to their rental house. Small but clean and comfortable. Nothing fancy, but clearly a home where a family was being raised. We had dinner together, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was actually part of a family gathering instead of being an outsider who happened to share DNA with these people. Stephanie asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested in my answers. Derek talked about his job, about learning to enjoy the stability of regular employment. They showed me Tyler's room, told me about his sleep schedule and feeding routine, included me in the mundane details that make up family life. When I left that night, Stephanie hugged me goodbye. Thank you for giving us another chance, she said. Thank you for becoming people worth giving a chance to, I replied. That was 8 months ago. Derek has been making his $200 monthly payments religiously. I've only received 2 so far, but they've both been on time and accompanied by brief notes updating me on their family's progress. Stephanie and I text occasionally now, usually sharing pictures of Tyler or updates on family news. She asks about my life too, and seems to actually listen to the answers. My parents called on my 35th birthday last month, the first time they'd acknowledged my birthday in 3 years. The conversation was awkward but civil, and Mom asked if I'd like to come to Christmas dinner this year. What about Stephanie and Derek? I asked. They'll be there too, if you're comfortable with that. I am. So this will be the first Christmas in 4 years that I'll spend with my family. I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll be different this time, that I'll be welcomed as a family member, rather than tolerated as an obligation. But if it's not, that's okay too. I've learned to be happy without their approval, to build a life based on my own values instead of their expectations. I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for people you love is to stop enabling their worst behaviors. Story 3. My parents kicked me out, so my brother could film shirtless TikToks in my room for his coaching business. I was paying their bills, so I cut them off. Now they're in meltdown, and the whole family is falling apart, piece by piece as I watch with my new family. Hey Reddit! My family kicked me out of my own room for my brother's fitness influencer dreams, so I cut them off completely and never looked back. Turns out they weren't ready for what came next. But before we get to that, let me start from the beginning. My name's Nolan. I'm 24. I work in marketing at a mid-sized firm downtown, and I'm tired in that way where even your bones feel heavy. I pulled into the driveway on a Thursday, 12 hours deep into back-to-back client presentations that went nowhere. The first thing I noticed was Brody's beat-up Honda parked where I usually park, my younger brother. Haven't seen him in 8 months, not since he dropped out of state school, and decided couch surfing with his dropout friends was a viable life plan. The second thing I noticed was the disassembled squat rack in his back seat. My gut dropped before I even opened the front door. Inside, the house smelled like reheated pasta and that specific kind of tension that comes right before someone drops bad news on you. Brody was on the couch eating my meal prep chicken straight from the Tupperware, scrolling through fitness Instagram like he owned the place. My mom Denise was in the kitchen wiping down counters that were already clean. My dad Alan hovered near the hallway, pretending to read something on his phone. Nobody looked at me when I walked in. Nolan, Mom said, not looking up. We need to talk about the living situation. I set my bag down slowly. Here we go. Brody's moving back home, she continued. He needs your room. My room? It's bigger, she said. Better lighting for his filming. And he needs space for his home gym equipment. Brody finally looked up from his phone. I'm starting an online personal training business, bro. Like, for real this time. I need a proper setup. This is my moment, you know. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. The guest room, Mom said, still wiping the same spot on the counter. The guest room is packed with Christmas decorations and old furniture. We'll move those to the garage. It'll be fine. It's half the size and faces the street. You're barely home anyway, Mom said. Always at that office. When does this need to happen? This weekend, she said. Sunday's good. 3 days. They were giving me 3 days. Brody finally looked up from his phone. Thanks for understanding, bro. This setup is going to be sick. I'm finally going to make this work. I stared at him. He had 127 followers on Instagram. His account was called at BrodyFit_transform. In the last 6 months, he'd posted 39 shirtless mirror selfies and maybe a dozen workout videos that got 15 likes each, mostly from people we went to high school with. He'd earned exactly $0. You're barely home anyway, Mom added. Always at that office. Plus, you don't need all that space for suits and a laptop, Brody said. I need room for my bench, squat rack, lighting, filming space, real equipment. I opened my mouth to argue, to point out that I actually live here, that I have a life, a workspace, things that matter. But Mom cut me off. Brody needs room for his equipment and content creation. He's building a business, a real business. Dad said nothing, didn't even look up from his phone, just stood there like a piece of furniture. What about the bills I pay? I asked. Mom didn't miss a beat. Obviously, you'll keep handling those. This is still your home. You're still part of this family. There it was. The thing that made my chest tight. For 2 years, I'd been paying $850 a month toward this house. Internet, utilities, groceries, streaming services, Mom's car insurance, things they'd asked me to help with that became permanent, things they stopped thanking me for after the first month. Brody needs to focus on building his brand right now, Mom continued. He can't be distracted by bills and responsibilities. Once his coaching business takes off, he'll contribute. I looked at Dad. He was still staring at his phone. Wouldn't meet my eyes. They weren't asking. They were telling. When do I need to be out? I asked quietly. Sunday's fine, Mom said. That gives you the weekend. Brody had already gone back to his phone, scrolling through fitness influencer accounts, probably imagining himself among them. I went upstairs to my room, the room I'd had since I was 9, posters from high school still on the walls, my desk where I'd done homework, written college applications, built the budget that kept this house running without them ever noticing. I sat on my bed and pulled up my bank statements. $867 last month, $891 the month before, $823 before that. I scrolled back. 2 years of payments, roughly $20,000. Downstairs, I could hear Brody doing loud push-ups, counting reps like he was filming. Then, Mom's voice. Nolan, can you grab protein powder on your way home from work tomorrow? Brody's almost out. Like nothing had just happened. I opened my laptop and searched for apartments. Then I opened a second tab and typed, how to remove yourself from utility accounts. If they wanted me gone, I'd go completely. I found a studio apartment Friday morning during my lunch break. $1,100 a month, 35 minutes from work. Available immediately. Small but clean. The landlord didn't ask questions when I said I could sign today and move in tomorrow. I took a sick day. First one in 18 months. By noon, I was back at the house with boxes from U-Haul. Mom and Dad were at work. Brody was still asleep. I packed in silence. Clothes, books, laptop, the desk I'd bought myself sophomore year of college. Everything that was mine. 2 years of life folded into boxes and garbage bags. Brody wandered out around noon wearing compression shorts and a tank top, protein shaker in hand. He saw the boxes stacked by my door and stopped. Yo, you taking all that? It's mine. Yeah, but I was gonna use that bookshelf for my supplements and equipment. Get yours, I said. Damn, okay, chill, bro. He scrolled through his phone. You got a link to where you bought it? I didn't answer. Just carried another box down to my car. 3 trips. That's all it took to remove myself from this house. Mom got home around 3 p.m. She stood in the driveway watching me load the last box, arms crossed. You're not seriously being dramatic about this, are you? I'm doing what you asked. I'm leaving. We're not kicking you out. We're just reorganizing. This is what families do. We make space for each other. I closed the trunk. She followed me to the driver's side door. So about the utilities transfer, I'll send you the account info. You've got 30 days before they shut off. Her face changed. Wait, what do you mean shut off? The accounts are in my name. You'll need to open new ones. That's ridiculous. Just keep paying them. We can Venmo you our share. I looked at her. Really looked at her. You've never Venmo'd me your share. Because you live here. You benefit from these services. I won't live here as of right now. You're being incredibly selfish. Your father is going to hear about this. I got in my car. Brody was on the porch now, filming himself with his phone. Hey bro, before you go, can you show me how to reset the Wi-Fi router? It keeps cutting out when I'm trying to upload videos. I backed out of the driveway without answering. Dad's car passed mine 2 blocks away. He was heading home. I watched him in my rearview mirror. He didn't slow down, didn't turn around, just kept driving toward the house like nothing was happening. He didn't even wave. The studio smelled like cigarettes and cheap air freshener. One room, a bathroom, a kitchen that was really just a counter with a hot plate. But it was mine. Just mine. I unloaded the boxes in silence and stacked them against the wall. Ordered pizza. Ate it sitting on the floor. Around 10 p.m., my phone started buzzing. 4 missed calls from Mom. I let them ring through. That night, I slept on an air mattress that leaked slowly. Woke up at 2 a.m. half deflated on the floor. Sunday morning, I spent 3 hours on my laptop, removing my name from everything. Electric company, account closure requested, effective October 30th. Internet provider, same. Water, gas, Hulu, Netflix, Spotify Family Plan, YouTube Premium, Amazon Prime. One by one, I filled out the forms. Uploaded proof of my new address, requested account closures. Then I typed up an email to my parents. Subject line, account information, action required by October 30th. I listed every service, the average monthly cost, the company phone numbers they'd need to call to set up new accounts. Attached a spreadsheet showing 24 months of payments, organized by category. No greeting, no explanation, no sign-off. I hit send. The rest of Sunday was quiet. I bought furniture from IKEA and Facebook Marketplace. A bed frame, a desk, a bookshelf, actual plates instead of paper. The apartment started feeling less like hiding and more like living. I checked my email once. The message to my parents showed read at 6:40 p.m. No response. Monday morning, I went back to work. Big presentation coming up. Major client. Potential promotion on the line. By Tuesday morning, I'd almost forgotten about them. Then my phone started buzzing during a meeting. 6 texts, 3 calls, all from Mom. I silenced it and kept my focus on the presentation deck in front of me. The last text preview lit up my screen. The internet isn't working. Brody has a client consultation call in an hour. Call me now. I flipped my phone face down. Brody didn't have clients. After the meeting, I listened to the voicemails. Mom's voice, progressively more frantic across 6 messages. The Wi-Fi isn't connecting. Did you forget to pay the bill? Nolan, this isn't funny. Brody can't film content without internet. He has a posting schedule. Your father tried calling them and they said the account is closed. What did you do? Brody missed a consultation call because of you. Do you know how unprofessional that makes him look? You are being incredibly immature. Call me back right now. Brody had texted too. Dude with no internet? I have sponsors reaching out and I can't even check my DMs. This is sabotage, bro. I deleted everything. Brody didn't have sponsors either. Wednesday afternoon, Aunt Linda called. Denise's sister. We talked maybe twice a year. Your mother is very upset. What's going on? I moved out. I closed accounts in my name. That's it. She said you abandoned them without warning and left them with no internet or power. I gave them 30 days notice and all the account information they needed. Brody is trying to start a business. Do you know how hard it is for young people right now? Do you know how much I paid in bills over the last 2 years? Silence on the other end. Family doesn't keep score, Nolan. $20,000. That's not keeping score. That's just math. More silence. If Brody wants to be a business owner, he should learn how to pay bills. She didn't call back. Thursday morning, my boss pulled me aside after the client presentation. We'd landed it. $340,000 annual contract. We're promoting you to senior account manager. 18% raise. Starts next month. First genuinely good news in 2 weeks. My salary jumped from $68,000 to $80,000. I celebrated alone that night in my studio apartment with an expensive drink I'd been saving. Toasted to myself in the empty room. To not being useful anymore. Friday evening, someone pounded on my door. I looked through the peephole. Dad. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. We talked in the hallway. He looked exhausted. Older than I remembered. You need to fix this. Fix what? The bills. The internet. All of it. Your mother is losing her mind. Brody's business is suffering. Then they can call the companies and set up new accounts. You know we can't afford all that without your help. I stared at him. Where were you when she kicked me out? She didn't kick you out. She just needed to reorganize. Where were you? He looked at his shoes. I tried to talk to her. She wouldn't listen. You didn't try hard enough. You didn't try at all. If you don't help us, things are going to get really difficult. You should have thought of that before giving my room away for a home gym. This is your family. No, that's your family. I'm just the guy who paid the bills so Brody could take shirtless selfies. He's trying to build something. He's 22 years old with 170 Instagram followers. That's not building something. That's screwing around. Dad flinched. Your mother thinks you owe us. I don't owe you anything. I already gave you 2 years and 20 grand. He left without another word. Walked down the hallway like a man who knew he was wrong but couldn't admit it. That night, I blocked Mom's number. Kept Dad unblocked for reasons I didn't fully understand yet. Blocked Brody. I checked Instagram one last time before deleting the app. Brody had posted a rant in his stories. Fake family is worse than no family. Some people will smile in your face then stab you in the back. I see you. Keep that same energy, 100% hashtag betrayed, hashtag fake family, hashtag staying focused, posted from my parents' house using their new data plan. They'd gotten internet again somehow. I screenshot it, saved it, then deleted Instagram entirely. Sunday night, sitting at my new desk, I realized I hadn't thought about them all day. Small victory. I opened my laptop to catch up on work emails. One caught my eye. Company newsletter featuring my recent client win. My name in bold. Senior Account Manager Nolan drives Major Q4 win. First time my name had been associated with something I was proud of in months. Monday morning, I got a LinkedIn message. Harper Clark, project manager at a partner company. We'd met briefly at a conference 6 months ago. Good conversation. Smart. Direct. I'd thought about reaching out but never did. Hey, saw your promotion announcement. Congrats on the client win. Want to grab coffee and talk about potential collaboration between our teams? I stared at the message. First person to congratulate me, who wasn't paid to care. I typed back, coffee sounds great. How's Thursday? Her response came within minutes. Perfect. 10 a.m. at Riverside Coffee. See you there. I closed my laptop and looked around the studio. Small space. Quiet. Mine. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. Probably Mom calling from someone else's phone. I let it ring through. Whatever they needed, whatever crisis Brody had created, whatever guilt trip Mom wanted to deploy, it wasn't my problem anymore. I was done being the fix-it guy. For the first time in 2 years, my life was my own. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. 6 months disappeared faster than I expected. Harper and I had been dating for 4 months. Coffee turned into lunch, lunch turned into dinner, dinner turned into weekends at her place or mine. She asked about my family once over Thai food in February. We don't talk. Do you want to talk about why? Not yet. She nodded and changed the subject. Never pushed. That's when I knew she was different. Work was good. I managed 3 major accounts now. The promotion came with real responsibility. Longer hours, but better money. No contact from my parents since Dad showed up at my door. Complete silence. But Uncle Rick reached out. Dad's younger brother. Always been the black sheep of the family. Never bought into Mom's nonsense. We met for coffee in March. Your dad won't tell me what happened, Rick said. But Denise is telling everyone at family events that you stole money and abandoned Brody when he needed support. I pulled out my phone and forwarded him something I'd prepared months ago. 28 pages. Every bill, every transfer, every receipt, 2 years of payments documented. He scrolled through it, face getting darker with each page. Jesus Christ, kid. I knew she was controlling, but this is financial abuse. We started meeting monthly after that. Sometimes his daughter Morgan joined us. She was my age, graphic designer, had always hated how Denise treated me. I told my mom years ago that your family was weird, Morgan said one afternoon. The way they talked about you versus Brody, like you were the help. Through them, I got updates on Brody. His fitness coaching career was dead. 183 followers, 0 clients. He'd tried selling training programs and running challenges. Nobody bought in. New plan, day trading crypto. Convinced Denise to give him $8,000. Lost it all in 6 weeks. Current plan, NFT fitness programs. Whatever the hell that meant. Still living at home. Still unemployed. Still posting shirtless selfies. Recent post, according to Morgan. They laugh at visionaries until the vision becomes reality. 11 likes. April hit like a freight train. Rick called me at work on a Tuesday. Voice serious. Your dad had a heart attack. He's at County General. Everything went cold. Is he okay? Stable. Minor one, but a warning. Stress-related, the doc said. But you should know. I hung up and sat in my car for 20 minutes. Harper texted, "Lunch?" My dad had a heart attack. Her response was immediate. "I'm coming to you." She showed up 15 minutes later with sandwiches. Sat with me in silence until I was ready to talk. "Do you want to go see him?" "I don't know." I went alone that evening. 8 p.m. Hoped Denise wouldn't be there. She was. Dad was in the bed, hooked to monitors, looking older than his 52 years. Denise saw me walk in. Her face cycled through shock, anger, relief, then entitlement. "Finally, you're here. We need to talk about—" "I'm not here for you." I walked past her to Dad's bed. He was awake, groggy from medication. Saw me and started crying immediately. "How are you feeling?" I'm sorry." "For what?" "All of it. I should have. I didn't." His voice cracked. Couldn't finish. Denise interrupted. "Nolan, your father needs rest. But since you're here, we need to discuss the medical bills. Insurance won't cover everything and—" I turned to her slowly. "Get out." "Excuse me. I came to see him. Not you. Get out or I leave." "How dare you!" I walked toward the door. "Denise, please." Alan's voice was weak but firm. She didn't leave. Instead, she launched into a tirade right there in the hospital room. She launched into the usual script. I'd abandoned them. I'd sabotaged Brody's business. I owed them for raising me. "Brody didn't have a business," I said. "He had an Instagram account and a bench press. We gave you everything. I gave you $20,000. We're even." A nurse entered. "Ma'am, you need to keep your voice down or I'll have to ask you to leave. This is my family. I'll speak however I walked out. Dad watched me go. Tears running down his face. Said nothing. Didn't defend me. Didn't tell Mom to stop. Just laid there. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands shaking. Texted Harper, "I shouldn't have come. Do you want me to come get you?" "No, I'm okay. I'll be home soon." "I love you." First time either of us said it. I stared at the text, vision blurring. Typed back, "I love you too." That night, Harper held me while I stared at the ceiling. He didn't say anything. She went off on me and he just laid there. I know. Why wasn't I enough? You were always enough. They just couldn't see it. Alan texted 3 days later from a new number. "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry about your mother. I'm sorry for everything." I didn't respond for a week. Then, "Focus on recovering. Can we talk sometime? Just us?" "I'm not ready." "I understand. I'll wait." 1 year after leaving, my life looked nothing like it had before. I'd been promoted again. Account director now. $87,000 salary, managing a team of 4. Moved to a better apartment in May. 1 bedroom with a balcony and an actual kitchen. Harper basically lived there. Her toothbrush in the bathroom, her clothes in half the closet, her coffee mug on the counter every morning. We'd been together 10 months. She'd met Rick and Morgan, my co-workers, my college friends. She hadn't met my parents. Didn't ask, didn't need to. We got engaged over Christmas. Simple proposal at her parents' place. No big production. Just me, her, and a ring I'd been saving for. She said yes before I even finished asking. We set the wedding date for June. Small ceremony. Close friends and family only. Harper posted a photo of the ring on Instagram a few days later. Simple caption, "Easiest yes of my life." I didn't have social media anymore. Hadn't for months. But I forgot that Rick followed Harper. He commented, "Congratulations to you both. Can't wait for the wedding." Then shared it to his Facebook. Dad saw it. He was friends with Rick. Next morning, I woke to a text from a number I didn't recognize. Congratulations, son. I'm proud of you. She looks wonderful. I wish I could be there. I showed Harper over coffee. What do you want to do? I don't know. I left it on red for 3 days. Kept rereading it. I wish I could be there. Like something was stopping him. Like he didn't have a choice. Day 4, my phone rang. Unknown area code. I answered thinking it was work-related. Nolan, I heard you're getting married and you didn't even tell your own mother? I hung up immediately. She called back 6 times from different numbers. I blocked them all. That evening, an email arrived. The email was exactly what I expected. She was my mother. She had a right to be involved. Harper deserved to meet her future mother-in-law properly. How could I exclude Brody? They were willing to move past this if I was. They wanted to help pay for the wedding. Harper looked at me. Is she serious? She thinks she can buy her way back in. What are you going to do? Nothing. I didn't respond to the email, but I drafted a text to Dad. Took me 2 days to finalize it. Rewrote it 11 times. Finally sent it. There's a seat for you at the wedding if you want it. Just you. Not Denise. Not Brody. Your choice. Wedding is June 21st. RSVP by May 15th. He read it at 11:44 p.m. Read receipt showed immediately. No response. Days passed, then weeks. Harper asked once in early April. Any word from your dad? No. I'm sorry. I'm not surprised. But I checked my phone more often than I should have. April 30th came and went. No response from Alan. June 7th. 1 week before the wedding. I was brushing my teeth before bed when my phone buzzed. Text from Dad. I can't come. Denise says if I go without her and Brody, she'll divorce me. I can't afford that right now. Not with the medical bills and everything else. I'm sorry, Nolan. I hope you understand. You deserve to be happy. I read it 3 times. Spit toothpaste in the sink. Showed Harper. I typed a response. I understand completely. You chose her over me again. This is the last time you'll get the chance. Don't contact me anymore. Hit send, blocked his number, deleted the entire text thread. Felt nothing but clarity. Wedding week moved fast. Work, venue, walkthrough, rehearsal dinner. Harper asked the night before. No regrets about them not being there? They were never really there anyway. Wedding morning, I was getting ready with my groomsmen when Rick pulled me aside in the hallway. Your dad called me last night, 2 a.m. He's a mess, crying. Wanted me to convince you to let him come. What did you tell him? I told him he made his choice and now he gets to live with it. Then I told him he's a coward and hung up. I nodded slowly. Thank you. But Nolan, I think he's finally seeing it. What she is, what he's let happen, what he's lost, it's destroying him. Good. You sure about that? He had 1,000 chances to choose me. He chose her every single time. He doesn't get to be destroyed now and expect my sympathy. Rick squeezed my shoulder. Fair enough. Let's get you married. The ceremony started at 4 p.m. 2 empty seats in the front row on the groom's side. I left them there on purpose. Wanted the absence visible. We honeymooned in Colorado. 5 days of hiking and small-town breweries. I barely looked at my phone. For 5 days, my past didn't exist. Thursday evening, we got back to the apartment. Mail piled up on the counter. Bills, wedding cards, junk. I checked my email while Harper unpacked. One from Morgan. You need to see this. Sorry to ruin the honeymoon glow. Brody got arrested. DUI. Hit a parked car. No one was hurt, but he's in serious trouble and Denise is having a full meltdown. Thought you should know, even if you don't care anymore. Call me if you want details. -M attachment. Screenshot of local news article. Harper read over my shoulder. Oh my God, is he okay? He's alive. He's stupid, but he's alive. Are you going to reach out or? No. I deleted the email. Ordered takeout. We watched a movie. I didn't think about Brody again. Monday, Rick called during lunch. Your dad's been calling me. Won't stop. Asking for your number. I told him I'd ask you first. Why does he want it now? Brody's bail is $15,000. Denise has been calling everyone in the family begging for money. I said no. Morgan said no. Even Aunt Linda said no. She's demanding Alan liquidate his retirement account to bail Brody out. And he said no. Long pause. He said no? Told her Brody needs to face real consequences for once. She threatened divorce. He didn't back down. Good for him. Doesn't change anything. Nolan, I think your dad's finally breaking. He asked if there were photos from the wedding. What did you tell him? That it was beautiful. That Harper looked gorgeous. That you looked happy. And that he missed it because he's a coward who chose wrong. He's not asking for my number to get money, is he? No. I think he just wants to talk. He sounded broken. I'm not ready to care about that yet. Fair. Just wanted you to know. 3 months passed. Through Rick, I heard the updates. Brody pleaded guilty, lost his license for 2 years. 200 hours community service, 18 months probation, $7,500 in fines. Denise took out a personal loan at 19% interest to pay his fines, $12,000. But she didn't stop there. Bought him a used car for $8,500 because he needed reliable transportation for job hunting. Brody still had no job. Hadn't had one in 3 years. October. Alan came home from work to find a letter from the bank. Denise had taken out the $12,000 loan without telling him. Joint account, both their names. He also found the receipt for the car purchase. According to Rick, who heard from Diane, who heard from a neighbor, the fight was nuclear. Alan confronted her at the kitchen table. $12,000 in debt she'd hidden from him. Another car for Brody, who still had no job. The fight was nuclear. Denise defended Brody. He'd made a mistake. He needed support. He needed transportation. Alan finally snapped. Brody was 23 with no job, no license, and no future. Meanwhile, I had a degree, a career, a marriage. Nolan abandoned us, Denise screamed. No, we abandoned him. And I'm done pretending we didn't. Then get out. Alan packed a bag that night. Motel for a week, then a month-to-month rental. Filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Rick told me over coffee. Okay, I said. That's it? What do you want me to say? That I'm happy they're miserable? I'm not. I'm just numb to it. He's asking about you. A lot. Good for him. But I felt something. A small crack in the wall I'd built. Thanksgiving week. Harper and I hosted. Rick, Diane, Morgan, Harper's parents, work friends. 10 people crammed around a table meant for 6. Chaotic. Warm. Real. I was carving the turkey when my phone buzzed. Harper checked it. Unknown number. She read it aloud. It's from your dad. Using Rick's old phone. Says, "This is Alan. I know you blocked me. I just wanted to say I'm thankful you exist, even if you don't want me in your life anymore. I'm sorry for all of it. I'm in therapy now, trying to be better, even though it's too late. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Dash. Dad. I set down the carving knife. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. I didn't respond. But I didn't delete it either. 6 months later, Harper was 12 weeks pregnant. We closed on a house in May. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, small yard, needed cosmetic work but solid bones. $340,000. Our names on the deed. Nobody else's. I'd been promoted to senior director of accounts. $105,000 salary. Leading a department. Life was objectively, undeniably good. I thought about Alan sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. The Thanksgiving text was still in my phone. Hadn't responded. Hadn't deleted it. Alan didn't text often from Rick's phone. Every few months, a message appeared. Saw your company got that healthcare contract. Congratulations. Happy birthday, Nolan. Rick mentioned you're buying a house. That's wonderful. Really proud of you. I never responded, but I read everyone. March. Rick told me over lunch the divorce was final. Alan got destroyed. Denise got the house, 60% of savings, her car. Alan was paying off half of Denise's loan for Brody. Joint debt. He's living in a 1-bedroom apartment, working overtime. Won't be financially recovered for 8 years. He's 53 years old. Is Brody still living with her? Where else would he go? He can't even get a job at Target. April. A letter arrived at our new house. Handwritten envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Harper found it. There's a letter here. From your dad. I stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. 3 pages. Alan's scratchy handwriting. He admitted everything. That he chose comfort over protecting me. That he enabled Brody and let Denise hurt me because he was too weak to stand up to her. That he's in therapy twice a week trying to fix himself even though it's too late. Rick had shown him wedding photos. He saw me happy without him. The letter ended. I'm alone now anyway, and I deserve it. If you ever want to talk, even just once, I'm here. I'm so sorry, Nolan, for all of it. I read it twice. Set it on the kitchen counter. Didn't throw it away. Didn't respond. Just left it there. That night, Harper asked, "What are you going to do?" I don't know. Do you want to see him? Part of me does. Part of me thinks it's way too late. It is too late. For what you needed then. But maybe it's not too late for something different now. Like what? I don't know. But you get to decide. Not him. Not me. You. 3 weeks later, I texted Rick. If my dad asks for my number again, you can give it to him. 2 days later, a text from a new number. It's Alan. Rick said you're okay with me having this. Thank you. That means more than you know. If you ever want to get coffee, I'm around. No pressure, no expectations. I waited 5 days. Then, Saturday, 10 a.m. Riverside Coffee on 5th Street. 1 hour. That's it. I'll be there. Thank you. I got there 15 minutes early. Corner table. Escape route visible. Alan walked in at 9:58 a.m. Older, thinner, grayer, tired. Saw me and froze for a second, then walked over slowly. Thanks for meeting me. Sit down. He sat. Awkward silence. I'm not going to waste your time with small talk. I know you don't owe me anything. You're right. I don't. Why didn't you stand up for me? Not once. Not ever. Long pause. He stared at his coffee. Because I was scared. Of what? Of her anger? Of conflict? Of being alone? Of having to admit I married someone I couldn't fix and stayed anyway. I know how pathetic that sounds. It is pathetic. I know. You chose that over your son. Over me. I did. And I'll regret it every day for the rest of my life. That doesn't change anything. I know. But I need you to hear it anyway. We sat for 90 minutes. He asked about Harper, the house, the baby. I gave short answers, still guarded. He told me about therapy, about what he was learning. I spent 30 years avoiding conflict. It cost me everything that mattered. Yeah, it did. At the end, I'm not ready to have you in my life yet. I understand, but I'm not saying never. I'm saying not yet. His eyes teared up. That's more than I deserve. Yeah, it is. I got up to leave, turned back. Don't make me regret this. I won't. We met every 6 to 8 weeks after that. Coffee, sometimes lunch. Alan never pushed, always showed up on time, respected every boundary. Month 6, I told him about the baby. December. Harper gave birth. Carter James, healthy. 2 days later, I texted Alan a photo. First photo I'd ever sent him. Just the baby. He's beautiful. Congratulations to you both. Thanks. 3 months later. Do you want to meet him? Are you sure? 1 hour. At our house. Harper will be there. Don't bring anything. Don't overstay. I'll be there. Alan showed up exactly on time with one thing. A children's book. Hardcover. Met Harper properly for the first time. I'm sorry I missed your wedding. I'm sorry I wasn't there when Nolan needed me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm grateful you're letting me be here now. Harper, direct as always. Yeah, me too. But you're here now, so don't miss it up. Alan almost laughed. Yes, ma'am. He held Carter for 8 minutes. Tears the whole time. Over the next year, Alan became a peripheral presence. Not close, but there. Visits every 2 to 3 months. Birthday cards for Carter. Never asked about Denise or Brody. One day I caught myself thinking, he's trying. Actually trying. That mattered. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to build something small in the present. 2 years after the wedding, the karma caught up. Denise lost the house. Couldn't afford the mortgage. Too much debt. Sold at a loss during a down market. Moved to a 2-bedroom apartment near the highway. Worked 2 part-time jobs at 56. Retail and gym reception. Brody still lived with her. 25 years old. No job, no license, no prospects. His Instagram was private now. At Brody Unfiltered. 193 followers. Denise posted Facebook rants about loyalty and family values. No one engaged. Aunt Linda unfriended her. Most of the family muted or blocked her. She told anyone who'd listen. My son won't even talk to me, and I don't know why. Rick finally told her at a family funeral. Yes, you do, Denise. You just won't admit it. She blocked him. August. A letter from Denise arrived at our house. 3 pages of half apologies and victim mentality. She didn't know what she'd done wrong. She'd sacrificed everything for Brody. Dad had abandoned them. She'd always loved me. Ended by asking me to help Brody find a job. Still asking for something. I threw it away immediately. 5 years after leaving, I was 29. Owned a house worth $390,000. Married 4 years. Son Carter was almost 3. Daughter due in 3 months. Alan was Grandpa Alan now. Visited once a month. They had dinner every 6 weeks. Not perfect. Still distance, but honest. Rick and Morgan were regulars at family dinners and birthdays. Denise still worked 2 jobs, barely making rent. Brody still lived with her at 27. Still the same loser he'd been at 22. Unemployed. Got fired from a warehouse temp job after 3 weeks. She posted on Facebook about being betrayed. Talked about me at work. No one wanted to hear it anymore. Sunday afternoon, late summer. Carter's 3rd birthday party in our backyard. 15 people. Batman theme, small bounce house. Alan was teaching Carter to kick a soccer ball. Wearing a World's Okayest Grandpa shirt Morgan got him as a joke. I closed my eyes and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 4. My parents said I was just the responsible one while they paid for my brother's lies. I paid rent. He crashed cars. They even helped him hide a kid. Then he stole my credit and blamed me. So I cut them off, helped the kid's mom sue him, and made sure everyone knew. Now they're broke, and I don't answer their calls. Hey Reddit, I don't usually post on here. I just scroll, read drama, and mind my business. But things at home went so sideways, I honestly didn't know where else to drop this. I, 31 male, am the older brother. Grew up in a pretty average house. 2 parents, 1 younger brother. You'd think being the firstborn, I'd get the respect, the responsibility, all that. And I did, for about 5 years. Then Josh was born. Since then, I've basically just been the guy who works, pays bills, keeps quiet, and gets blamed when stuff goes sideways. Josh, 24 male, is 7 years younger than me. He's 24 now. Still lives at home, doesn't work, never has, unless you count a 3-week part-time job he quit because the manager was annoying. He stays up all night, sleeps all day, eats whatever's around, and talks to our parents like they're employees who owe him something. Meanwhile, when I lived with them, I was paying rent. Actual rent. I moved back in when I was 26 for a bit, just to stack some money after a rough stretch. I told them I'd chip in, of course. I'm not a leech. First month back, Dad tells me the contribution is $600. I'm like, fine, it's their house. I paid it. The next day, I hear my mom say to Josh, "Don't worry, sweetheart. You focus on yourself." I asked if he was helping out too. She said, "He's not in the same position as you." Right. His position is playing video games and ignoring job applications. Mine was working 50 hours a week and still being treated like I owed them something just for existing. And it wasn't just about money. When Josh crashed my dad's car after taking it without asking, they covered it up like it was a simple mistake. He didn't have a license, lied about where he was going, hit a fence and dented the whole side. I found out because I walked into the garage and saw the damage. They told me not to say anything to the neighbors. I laughed. If that had been me, I'd still be getting lectured today. Hell, I'd probably be on the hook for repairs. But Josh? Nah. They said he was just stressed. Let me give you one more example of how deep the favoritism runs. A couple years ago, I was finally doing well for myself. Got promoted at work, had a few freelance gigs on the side. I was saving, planning for a condo. So I started helping out more. I'd send them grocery money without them asking. Helped fix the AC when it died in July. Paid for my dad's new phone. Didn't ask for anything in return. One weekend, I came over to visit. I walk in, and my mom's talking about how Josh has been trying to get into digital media and might need a better setup. She looks at me and says, "Could you help him get a computer?" I asked Josh directly what he needed it for. He shrugs and says, "I just want a decent rig so I can stream." That was it. Not work, not study, just stream. I said no. Mom gave me this disappointed look like I was the one being unreasonable. She said, "You always have something negative to say." What she meant was, "You're not enabling him, so now you're the problem." It all added up over time. I was expected to give, and he was expected to receive. The rules were just different for us. If I was tired from work, I was lazy. If Josh stayed in bed till 2 p.m., he was going through something. Honestly, the worst part wasn't even the money. It was how normal they made it all seem. Like I was the crazy one for noticing. Like I was the ungrateful one. The outsider. And no matter how much I helped out, it never balanced the scales. Not even close. There was this one time I took a week off work to help Dad with something around the house. Some busted plumbing and electrical problems. Spent all week fixing stuff, sweating in a crawl space, doing things they would have paid a stranger thousands to do. I left Sunday night, tired as hell. The next day, Josh posted on social media about how some people just show up for praise but don't actually care. I knew it was about me. He didn't tag me, but I knew. When I brought it up, my mom said, "He didn't mean it that way. Don't start drama." I could feel something shift in me then. Not anger, just attachment. Like whatever rope I'd been using to tie myself to this family had finally frayed and snapped. Not all at once, but piece by piece, until there was nothing left holding me to them. So yeah, that's the background. That's how it always was. I was the one working, the one paying, the one fixing things, and somehow still the one being treated like I wasn't doing enough. Meanwhile, Josh sat on his ass, treated everyone like garbage, and got away with it because he's sensitive. After everything I'd already dealt with, I still gave them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Guilt. Whatever. I was raised to be the bigger man, which in my family just meant take more crap than anyone else and keep paying for it. Anyway, I had moved out again. Got my own place. 1-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy but clean, quiet, and finally mine. I still sent my parents money every now and then. Usually small stuff. Groceries, utilities. The occasional Josh's phone bill is due, and he's going through a rough time again. I never got so much as a thank you. Not once. I was working remotely, getting steady contracts, finally building some savings. I wasn't rich, but I was doing okay, enough to relax a bit for the first time in years. And even with how they'd treated me, I still made the mistake of thinking, maybe they'll appreciate it eventually. Then came the final straw. It was around March. My lease was ending in June, and I was thinking about house hunting. Nothing big, just a small starter place. I'd been talking to my cousin Jack about it. We were close in age, grew up together. Solid dude. Only one in the whole family who ever told me the truth straight. No fake positivity or guilt trips, just honesty. One night, he texted me, "Hey, you still planning to buy a place? You might want to check your credit report." Weird, but okay. I checked, and I almost threw my phone. There was a new credit card under my name. $6,700 balance. Opened 3 months ago. Maxed out. Late fees piling up. I never opened that card. I never authorized it. My hands were shaking. Guess whose name was listed on the card as an authorized user? Josh. I called the bank, confirmed the address on file. It was my parents' house. They'd used my info, my social, my full name, everything. I was done. I didn't even call them. I drove straight over there. Walked into the house, no knocking. My mom was in the kitchen. She looked up, smiled like nothing was wrong. Me. Where's Josh? Her. In his room. Why? Me. I'm not asking why. I'm telling you, get him out here. She starts panicking. What happened? I said one sentence. He stole my identity and opened a credit card in my name. You know what she said? He didn't steal it. We thought you wouldn't mind. They were all in on it. I just stared at her, like I didn't even recognize her anymore. My own mother. My dad walked in, acting like I'd just interrupted his favorite show. He said, "You're overreacting." Josh finally came out. Looked like he just rolled out of bed. Hair all messed up. Wearing some stupid hoodie he probably bought with my money. He had the balls to say, "It's not that serious, bro. You've got a good job." No apology, no shame. I told them all. Right there. I was done. Not just annoyed. Not just taking a break. Done. I made them sit there while I called the bank to report it. Reported the fraud. Froze my credit. Told the rep on speaker they stole from me. My mom tried crying. My dad kept muttering, "It's not that deep." I walked out while Josh was still complaining that I ruined his chances at rebuilding his credit. I didn't answer a single call after that. I changed my number. Blocked them all. Even blocked a few aunts and uncles I knew would come poking around asking questions. For a while it was silent, but not for long. About a month later, I started getting calls from random numbers, voicemails, Facebook messages. They were all saying the same crap. Your parents are struggling. Josh is depressed again. Family is family. You can't just disappear. My uncle even said, "Be a man and go fix this." I wanted to laugh. Be a man? I spent most of my adult life cleaning up messes I didn't make. That was being a man. They just didn't like that I finally stopped. They tried to guilt me hard. Said I abandoned the family. Said I owed it to them. Said they raised me. Let me make this clear. They raised a workhorse, not a son. They raised someone they could lean on. Someone they could dump their failures on. Someone who would never say no. Until I finally did. The only person who stood by me was Jack. He told the rest of the family to back off. Said they were lucky I didn't press charges. He even offered to help me sue, but I didn't want to drag it out. I just wanted to be free. And I was. Finally, I closed that fraud case, recovered my credit, landed a new job a few months later, way better pay, better hours, full benefits. Moved into a house last fall. 3 bedrooms, clean garage, small yard. Nothing crazy, just mine. And then came the moment that made everything worth it. About a week after I moved in, I got a knock at the door. Middle of the day. I opened it and saw Josh standing there. Same hoodie, same loser attitude. He said, "I heard you got a place." I didn't say anything. He goes, "Mom and Dad are going to lose the house. Can we stay here for a while?" I looked him dead in the face. Number. And then I shut the door. Not slammed, just closed. calm, simple, and that was it. No yelling, no fight, just the door closing on a guy who thought he could steal from me, lie to me, and still get a handout. That moment, that's the one I waited for my whole life. After I slammed the door on Josh, I stood there for maybe 5 seconds. No yelling, no knocking, nothing. He didn't try again. I think he got it. For once in his life, he didn't get his way, and there wasn't anyone around to twist it into sympathy for him. I didn't hear from them again for a while. They probably expected me to feel bad. That's always how it went. They'd pull something messed up, and then somehow I'd be the one apologizing. This time, I didn't call. I didn't unblock them. I didn't tell myself it was just family stuff, because it wasn't. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. Rent money, groceries, phone bills, gas, repairs, gifts for holidays, bragging rights. I was the kid they could point to when they wanted to pretend they raised someone right. Meanwhile, I was never allowed to say no. Not once. It's funny how quiet things get when people realize they can't guilt you anymore. But the silence didn't last long. 3 months later, Jack and I grabbed dinner at this small burger spot we both liked. I hadn't seen him in person since the credit card mess, but we kept in touch. He never judged me, just listened, gave his thoughts when I asked, and stayed out of the family drama. He always told me I should have cut them off years ago, but he never said, "I told you so." We sat down, and he gave me a heads up. "Jack, so just so you know, your mom's been talking to my mom." Me. "Yeah? What now?" Jack. "Same old crap. She says Josh is having a hard time, says they might have to sell the house. They're trying to make it sound like you're abandoning them." I nodded. I wasn't even surprised. Jack said his mom didn't buy into it, but other relatives might. And he was right. That same week, I started getting random texts from family I hadn't spoken to in years. One said, "You need to step up. They're your parents." Another said, "Whatever they did, family is family." A one guy I didn't even know well said, "He's your brother. You're older. Be a man." I blocked every single number. Let's get one thing straight. I wasn't punishing anyone. I just stopped volunteering to be used. They had chances, years of them, and they made their choice every single time. Josh got defended. I got told to grow up. He got excuses. I got responsibilities. So yeah, I wasn't helping anymore. And they didn't like that. Things escalated when they realized the door wasn't going to reopen. My mom went full campaign mode. She started messaging friends of mine on Facebook, even a couple coworkers. Told them she was worried about me. Said I was being manipulated by Jack. Said Jack was jealous of our family closeness. What closeness? Jack showed me the screenshots. One of the messages literally said, "We raised our son right, but Jack is turning him cold." He laughed when he showed me. I didn't. I was done being mad, but it still felt disgusting seeing my own mom talk about me like I was someone else's problem to fix. After that, I posted one final thing on my socials before I deactivated everything. Just to be clear, I'm doing fine. I live alone. I pay for everything myself. I don't steal, lie, or take advantage of people. If anyone's telling you I've changed, it's probably because I stopped letting them do those things to me. That was it. I disappeared from online after that. Deleted Facebook. Locked down everything else. They couldn't reach me directly anymore, so they started leaning on Jack. He told me they showed up at his mom's house. Twice. Asked if he could just pass a message or help smooth things over. Jack said no. Straight to their faces. He told my dad, "You didn't lose your son. You lost your ATM." I never asked him to say that. He just did. Jack always had a way of cutting through nonsense. I didn't think they could sink lower after the fraud, but they weren't done. Around 6 months after I cut them off, I got a letter in the mail. Real one. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was my mom's. The letter was 3 pages long. It started like a fake apology, then turned into a full-on guilt trip. She talked about how parents aren't perfect and how forgiveness is part of growing up. Said she was disappointed that I was letting money come between us. Then, the last paragraph hit different. "If you're going to pretend you don't have a family, then don't be surprised when we leave you out of important things. You'll regret missing weddings, babies, funerals. That's what happens when you turn your back." That's when it finally clicked. They didn't want peace. They wanted leverage. The family talk was just a tool to get back what I took away. Access to my wallet and my time. I didn't reply. The only reason I even kept that letter was to remind myself how far they were willing to go. But life got better after that. I got a promotion. I fixed up the house. I started working out again. Not for looks, just to feel solid. Jack and I started working on a side business. Simple online stuff, but it's growing. I even took a short vacation. First one in years. No one calling. No one asking for favors. Just silence. And it felt good. The last time I saw Josh was the day I shut the door on him. The last time I spoke to my parents was when they stood in their kitchen defending identity theft. I don't know where they are now. I don't care. They had a son. They chose to use him. And now, they don't get to say they raised a good man because they didn't. I built myself. Jack had my back. That was more family than I ever got from them. A few months after I blocked them out, life was finally quiet. I was working steady, sleeping better, eating real food instead of cheap fast stuff. No constant phone calls. No guilt texts. Jack and I were even putting real hours into our side project. Then I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but this one had a local area code, and I figured it might be work-related. It wasn't. It was my old high school buddy, Sam. We hadn't talked in years, but I always liked the guy. Solid dude, never into drama. The call started normal, but then he said something that made my stomach tighten. Sam. Hey man, random question. Was your brother ever dating a girl named Lena back in the day? I said yeah. Josh dated Lena during senior year. Why? He sighed. Sam. You need to hear this. Back when we were all teenagers, Lena had a rough time at home. Bad stepdad. Mom who didn't care. She was quiet, kept to herself. Dated Josh for a bit, but it didn't last long. Turns out something happened back then, and it was covered up. Josh had gotten her pregnant. I didn't know. No one did. She was 17. He was 18. According to Sam, she didn't tell anyone at first, just disappeared for a few weeks. Sam said one day he ran into her downtown, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in days. He bought her lunch and they talked. That's when she told him. She was scared, didn't know what to do, but she had told Josh. What did he do? He told her it wasn't his, blocked her, laughed in her face, called her names, said she was trying to trap him. And here's the worst part. My parents found out. Instead of helping, they paid her off to shut up. Sam swore he saw my dad handing an envelope to Lena behind the rec center. She was crying, and my mom was in the car looking straight ahead like it wasn't even happening. I didn't want to believe it. I asked Jack. He didn't know either, but he offered to help me find out. I started digging. A few calls, old social media, some messages. Took about 2 weeks, but we found her. Lena still lived in the area, not far from where we grew up. She agreed to meet for coffee. I didn't bring Jack, didn't record anything, didn't try to catch her. I just wanted the truth. And she gave it to me. Yes, she had gotten pregnant by Josh. She told him. He denied it. Then 2 days later, my mom and dad showed up at her apartment. They didn't yell. They didn't threaten. They just made it clear. This baby wasn't going to ruin Josh's future. They gave her cash. Told her she had options. And that if she ever told anyone, she'd be painted as a liar and a gold digger. Small town stuff. Easy to destroy a girl's name. She took the money. She left town. She had the baby. Josh has a daughter. And no one knows. No child support. No visits. No calls. Nothing. I asked Lena what she wanted from me. She said nothing. Just closure. She said, I always knew you weren't like them. I didn't sleep that night. This wasn't some family argument. This wasn't favoritism. This was evil. They erased a kid, lied to everyone, paid off a scared girl to protect their golden boy, all while acting like they were this wholesome, perfect family. Meanwhile, they were dumping guilt and rent and bills on me while protecting a guy who made a kid and walked away. And they didn't feel bad about it. They just buried it. That's when I stopped thinking about peace. I started thinking about payback. I didn't scream. I didn't post anything online. I made a plan. I called a lawyer. Not to sue them, yet, but to understand my options. I wasn't on any paperwork tied to Lena's kid, but I could vouch for her, and I could help her take it legal if she ever wanted to force a paternity test. My lawyer explained that Josh could be on the hook for years of unpaid support. That's step 1. Step 2 was reputation. My parents love pretending they're this generous, selfless couple. They go to every church event, community cookouts. They love being pillars of the neighborhood. So I talked to Lena again. She gave me permission to share her story, with proof. Photos, messages from back then, a copy of the original money order they gave her. She kept it all. I printed it, wrote a clean timeline, and mailed it anonymously to every board member at their church, every neighborhood Facebook group, and the local school council, where my mom volunteers. Jack helped me distribute it. He even got the church bulletin lady to sneak a copy into the donation envelopes. They didn't know what hit them. By the end of that month, Josh lost his job. He worked under a guy whose wife got the letter. My mom was removed from the school committee pending review. My dad? Someone keyed his car and left a note taped to the windshield. Pay for the kid your son left behind. They knew it was me. I didn't hide. I sent them a text for the first time in over a year. This is just the start. I'm not done. They never replied. Now I'm helping Lena quietly get legal steps started. She doesn't want money. She wants Josh to own it, to show up, to explain to that kid why he vanished. He won't. But we're going to make him try. This is the first time I've ever felt in control. They made me the outsider. Now I'm making sure the outside sees exactly who they are. And I'm not even close to finished. After the truth about Josh's kid started spreading, it didn't take long for my parents to hit full damage control mode. They went radio silent for a while, which was weird in itself. I figured they were regrouping. I was right. About a month later, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email. A formal letter with a printed header from my dad's business and everything, like they were trying to make it look official. Inside, they demanded, that I cease all attempts to sabotage the family's reputation and take responsibility for the damage caused. My mom even included a line about how I owe them for years of shelter, food, and support. It was the most delusional thing I've ever read. Keep in mind, this is after I found out they covered up a pregnancy to protect Josh. After they let me carry their bills for years. After they made me pay rent as a teen while he lived there for free, crashed cars, never worked, and got treated like royalty. And now, somehow, I'm the problem. Jack took one look at the letter and just said, "Let them sue. They'll lose." But I knew they weren't serious about legal action. That letter was a scare tactic, an attempt to guilt me back into line. Classic move from them. They didn't care about the truth getting out. They cared about losing control over how people saw them. So I ignored it. And that's when the phone calls started again. First from relatives. Uncles, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly acting all concerned. I could tell exactly where they were getting their info from. One cousin even said, "Your mom says you're spreading lies because you're jealous of Josh's success." I almost laughed out loud. Success? The guy was jobless, sleeping in the same room he had at 16, and still asking for money to start a business that doesn't exist. Then came the guilt trips. They took you in when no one else would. You're acting like they never helped you. You're ruining your family over a mistake Josh made as a teenager. Mistake? They helped him hide a child? But no one wanted to hear that part. They wanted me to be the villain, the ungrateful son. It made their version easier to swallow. Then my dad showed up at my apartment. Didn't call, didn't text, just rang the bell and stood there like I was supposed to drop everything. I opened the door, didn't say a word. He starts in with the whole, "We need to talk" routine. I just leaned on the frame and let him go. He said the family's name was being dragged through the dirt, that his clients were pulling out, that my actions were causing real damage. He even tried to throw Josh under the bus a little, saying he made a mistake, but they had to protect him because he wasn't ready to be a father. I asked him, "So you decided it was better to pay off the girl and pretend the kid didn't exist?" He didn't answer that. Then he dropped the real reason for his visit. He needed money. After all that. After years of being used. After they turned the entire family against me. After they backed a deadbeat son who abandoned his kid and lied about it. They came to me for help. Said he needed a temporary loan to keep the business afloat. Promised to pay it back with interest. Acted like I should be proud to support the family legacy. That's when I lost it. I told him the truth, with no filter. "You made your bed with Josh. Now sleep in it. Don't come to the son you treated like a tenant and beg for cash. You picked your golden boy. Go ask him." He tried to guilt me again. Said, "No matter what, we're still family." I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "No, you're just people I used to know." Then I closed the door. He stood there for a minute, then left. No yelling, no drama, just silence. But I knew that wasn't the end. The next week, they took it to Facebook. Yeah, grown adults airing it out online like teenagers. My mom posted a long status about how some people forget who raised them, and when you feed a snake, it still bites. Stuff like that. Comments rolled in. Some people backed her, others tagged me. I didn't respond. I let people talk. And meanwhile, Jack and I kept helping Lena prepare legal action. We'd already talked to a family law attorney. Josh would be served soon. She wanted full custody. She already had it. But also retroactive child support. That's tens of thousands. Josh didn't know it was coming. Neither did my parents. But they would. Soon. This chapter of my life, it's not about reconnecting. It's not about healing. It's about making things right for the people they tried to screw over. And I'm not doing it with shouting or social media. I'm doing it with cold, legal, public consequences. Let them see what happens when the kid they underestimated finally stops playing nice. It finally happened. Josh got served. He was still living at home, obviously. The guy had no job, no real bills, and hadn't made a single effort to move out. So when the process server showed up, it was at my parents' front door. My mom tried to argue with the guy, as if she could block a legal document from being handed over, but the server wasn't having it. Left it right in Josh's hands and walked away. Lena's name was right there, along with the demand for retroactive child support and a paternity test. Jack told me later, because he still had a friend in the neighborhood, Josh apparently threw the paperwork on the ground and started yelling that it was fake. My dad picked it up and said they'd get their attorney involved. Sure, these are the same people who thought a Facebook post would fix their public image. Anyway, I didn't hear anything from them directly. Not for 2 weeks. Then came the letter. Another printed envelope, this time from a law firm in town I actually recognized. I opened it, expecting a threat. It was worse. They were trying to sue me. The letter accused me of public defamation, malicious interference with family stability, and intentionally weaponizing private matters for social retaliation. All nonsense. Nothing illegal, nothing provable. But it showed me something more important. They weren't in damage control anymore. They were desperate. I called my lawyer. He laughed. This isn't even real legal ground, he said. They're trying to intimidate you. So I told him I wanted to hit back. Not emotionally, not online, legally. He helped me draft a response. We stated that I had never publicly named anyone, never posted anything, never committed defamation, that everything I shared privately was based on documented facts and first-hand accounts, with the subject's permission. And then I added a paragraph at the end. Given the family's own history of financial exploitation, selective financial support, and confirmed emotional mistreatment, any public trial would only further expose their misconduct. That was a warning shot. They never replied. Then came Josh's paternity results. Positive. No surprise there. What did surprise me was how fast Lena's attorney moved. She filed for back child support immediately. Her case was solid. Years of evidence showing he'd known, denied, and avoided responsibility. My parents' hush money stunt even strengthened it. Josh was now on the hook of unpaid support, plus future payments. We're talking thousands per month. And guess who they tried to make pay? Me. My mom had the nerve to send me a voicemail, crying, saying I was destroying the family financially, and that I needed to take responsibility for what I started. She said Josh was too mentally fragile to deal with all this stress, and that I needed to help keep this family together. No joke, she even said, you make the most money. It's only fair you carry the burden. Fair? I carried everything while Josh got babied and praised for doing nothing. And now they wanted me to pay for his kid. I didn't even respond. Jack heard the voicemail too, and just stared at the wall for like 10 seconds before saying, that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Here's where things started flipping for good. Remember those people who originally backed my parents online? Relatives, family friends, old neighbors? They started seeing through it. People were hearing about Josh's kid, the support order, the cover-up, and they were connecting the dots. Aunt Layla, who was always close to my mom, called me out of nowhere. She said, I didn't believe it at first, but it's all true, isn't it? I said, yeah. She apologized. Said she should have seen it years ago, that I was always the one working, helping, supporting. Josh was always lounging, using, burning bridges. That call was the first of many. By the end of the month, about half the extended family had either messaged me privately or cut off my parents completely. Even my uncle, my mom's brother, told her to get help and stop blaming the wrong son. That one really hit her. She posted a crying selfie on Facebook the next day. Meanwhile, Lena's case kept moving. Her lawyer wasn't messing around. The court ordered Josh to start payments immediately. They also scheduled a hearing for parental responsibility violations, because Lena submitted a statement showing how Josh had avoided involvement for over a decade, with help from his parents. Translation, my mom and dad might be dragged in too. They went from smug and untouchable to scared and exposed in less than 3 months. One day, Jack and I were sitting on my porch. We'd just finished up a meeting with a supplier for our side business. Things were going well, calm, quiet. Then I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, a moving truck, in front of my parents' house. The message just said, they're selling. Can't keep up anymore. I didn't even smile. I just nodded. They finally hit rock bottom. The house they protected so much, where they let Josh freeload and treated me like an unwanted tenant, was gone. The reputation they bragged about at every community dinner? Gone. Josh's future? Tied to child support and legal records now? And me? I was free. I had my business. I had people who respected me. I had peace. And most importantly, I had the receipts. All of it. Saved, documented, ready, if they ever tried anything again. So after the house got sold, they moved into a much smaller place in an older part of town. Same area, different status. No more big backyard, no more two-car garage. Just a tiny duplex that didn't even have proper heating. They didn't tell anyone. Someone from the old neighborhood spotted them unloading the truck and sent me a photo. Turns out they weren't just broke, they were in debt. Bad debt. My dad's business folded. Some of his clients backed out once they heard about the lawsuit, and he never adapted, still tried to run it like it was 2003. My mom had been using credit cards to cover bills behind his back, and once the payments dried up, everything defaulted. Credit score tanked, bills piled up. They were borrowing from relatives who already knew they were liars. So yeah, things were falling apart. And Josh? He was worse. Josh still had no job. That child support order kicked in hard, right out of the little savings he had. Lena's lawyer was ruthless with enforcement, garnished every account he touched. Any gig he tried to pick up under the table got flagged. He was even denied a passport when he tried to claim he had a job opportunity abroad. That was a lie, of course. He started calling old friends asking for help. Most of them ignored him. The ones who didn't gave him maybe $50 here or there, then blocked him when he kept asking. Then he tried to call me. Didn't even have the guts to text first. Straight up called me like we were cool. I didn't answer. So he left a voicemail. Sounded tired. Said he never meant for things to go this far. That he felt like everyone turned on him. And that he was just trying to survive. No apology. No owning what he did. Just excuses. He ended the message with, "You win, okay? Are you happy now?" I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. This wasn't about winning. It was about finally watching them live the life they made for themselves. The last time I saw my parents was about 4 months after they sold the house. I was walking out of a hardware store. Just picked up supplies for the new office space. Their car was parked near the sidewalk. They saw me this time. My mom opened the door and called out, "Wait! Please just wait." I didn't stop, but they caught up. She looked rough, tired, shaky. My dad looked smaller than I remembered. He wasn't wearing his usual smug expression. Just quiet. "We just want to talk," my mom said. "We're sorry. We were wrong. Josh. Josh has ruined everything, and we see that now." She started crying. My dad didn't say a word, just stood there behind her. "We need help," she said. "We're not asking for much, just something to get us through." I looked them both in the eye. No anger, no shouting, just said, "No." That was it. My mom blinked like she didn't hear me right. "Please, we're your parents." I shrugged. "You weren't when it counted." And I walked away. Story 5. On Christmas Eve, my father kicked me out at 17. Over a stolen $45,000 Rolex I never touched. 4 years later, Grandpa revealed the truth. And while my family faced eviction, divorce, public humiliation, and made me the sole heir to everything they tried to steal. Hey Reddit! My dad threw me out on Christmas Eve for something I didn't do. I built a life without him, and thought I'd left it all behind. But my family's lies and greed came crashing down years later. Before we get there, let me start from the beginning. My name is Cesar Alvarez, I'm 21, and tonight I'm driving back to the town I swore I'd never see again. 4 years ago, my family kicked me out on Christmas Eve. Today, I'm heading home for my grandfather Albert's 75th birthday, the first time I'll see my parents and Anne since that night. The highway is empty, the sky bruised with winter clouds, and the closer I get, the heavier my chest feels. I'm not that 17-year-old kid anymore. I'd built a small e-commerce business, earned my independence, and made a life without them. But no amount of success changes how deep that betrayal cut. Back then, the house was chaos long before that night. My mother, Lydia, was obsessed with appearances. Perfect decorations, perfect dinners, perfect lies. My sister, Anne, was the golden child. Spoiled, dramatic, and cruel in ways only siblings can be. If I breathed wrong, she mocked me. If I stayed quiet, she called me useless. Lydia always backed her up. My father, Stephen, was a powerful attorney who terrified judges and bulldozed opponents. Yet at home, he was silent. Instead of setting boundaries, he let them run the show. If Lydia said I was lazy, he agreed. If Anne said I was a disappointment, he looked away. I learned to live around them, not with them. I spent most of that December buried in scholarship applications, scraping together ideas for a small online business that I hoped would get me out of that house. Late at night, when the house was asleep, I'd slip into Stephen's office to print forms and do research. It was the only place with a working printer and a decent Wi-Fi connection. Christmas Eve arrived cold and brittle. The tree was glowing in the corner, the house filled with the smell of cinnamon and pine. Lydia was in hostess mode, barking orders and polishing wine glasses like the Pope was coming for dinner. Anne paraded around in a designer coat she'd demanded as a holiday essential, snapping selfies in front of the fireplace. I stayed out of the way, trying to help where I could, and counting the hours until the day ended. Then Stephen called me into the living room. "Where is it?" His voice wasn't raised, but there was something dangerous behind it. "Where's what?" I asked, confused. "My watch," he snapped. "The Rolex GMT Master 2 white gold. The one your grandfather gave me when I made partner. $45,000, Caesar. It's gone." I blinked. "I don't know anything about it." Lydia let out a laugh, sharp and humorless. "Of course you don't. That's always your answer. Acting like you're too busy with your little projects to notice anything." "I haven't done anything," I said. "I've been—" "Don't lie," Anne cut in. "I saw you in Dad's office last week, by his drawer, probably planning this." "I was printing out a scholarship application," I said, my voice tight. "I didn't touch anything." Lydia folded her arms, the perfect image of mock concern. "You've been sneaking around for weeks. Desperate. Secretive. It's obvious what you did." "Desperate for what?" I asked, the anger creeping in. "You've never cared what I do. You just want someone to blame." Stephen stepped closer, looming over me. "This isn't about blame. That watch means more to me than you'll ever understand. And now it's gone." "I didn't take it." My voice broke from frustration. "I didn't even know it was missing until now." "Liar." Lydia's voice was cold. "You've been a disappointment since the day you were born. This is just proof." Anne let out a cruel laugh. "Told you, Dad. He's probably trying to sell it to fund one of his fake business ideas." That was it. Something inside me cracked. "You have no idea what I'm trying to do," I said, staring at them. "I'm trying to make something of myself. I'm trying to be better than this." Stephen's eyes hardened. "Don't raise your voice at me. You've embarrassed this family for the last time." "I didn't do anything," I shouted. "You're accusing me of something I didn't—" Before I could finish, Stephen turned to his desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the empty Rolex box. He threw it across the room. It hit the wall beside me and fell to the floor. "Get out," he said, voice low and final. "Pack your things. Leave this house. You're not part of this family anymore." The Christmas tree lights blinked in the corner. Carols played faintly from the stereo. Outside, snow was beginning to fall. And in the middle of it all, my father stood there. Not as a man I loved or respected, but as someone who had decided I was no longer worth claiming. "You're making a mistake," I whispered. "The mistake," Lydia hissed, "was letting you stay this long." Anne smirked, arms folded. "Merry Christmas." I didn't say another word. I walked upstairs, packed a single duffel bag with my clothes and laptop, and walked out the front door. The door slammed behind me before I reached the driveway. The porch light flicked off as if they couldn't bear to see me go. It was Christmas Eve. I had $60 in my pocket, no place to sleep, and no one in that house who cared whether I froze in the snow. That was the night everything ended, and the night I swore they would never have power over me again. Snow was falling hard by the time I reached the end of the street. The lights from my house glowed warm behind me, muffled Christmas music leaking through the walls, a celebration I was no longer part of. My hands were numb, the straps of the duffel bag digging into my shoulder. The cold was sharp, but it wasn't what hurt. What hurt was that they'd done it tonight, on Christmas Eve. Every house I passed looked like a postcard. Families gathered around dinner tables. Children tore into presents. Through frosted windows, I saw smiles, laughter, warmth. I felt like a ghost drifting past someone else's life. My breath fogged in the air, and every inhale burned. I didn't know where to go. I scrolled through my phone and sent a message to Eli, a classmate I'd done a few group projects with. "Got kicked out. Any chance I can crash tonight?" He replied within minutes. "Come by." His family lived in a small townhouse on the other side of town. By the time I got there, my shoes were soaked through and my fingers stung. Eli opened the door, wearing a Santa hat and holding a plate of cookies. Behind him, his family was gathered in the living room watching a Christmas movie. The smell of roast turkey and cinnamon filled the air. "Man, what happened?" he asked. "Long story," I muttered. "Can I just crash on the couch?" "Yeah, of course," he said, stepping aside. His parents appeared a moment later, polite but wary. "Caesar, right?" his dad asked. "Rough night?" "Something like that." They let me in, but I could feel the discomfort. They spoke to each other in hushed tones when they thought I couldn't hear. I ate a plate of food they offered, but their eyes kept drifting toward me. a stranger in the middle of their holiday. When they exchanged gifts, I sat quietly on the couch staring at the floor. It was better than freezing outside, but it wasn't home. I left the next morning before anyone was awake. I thanked Eli in a text and told him I'd figure something out. The weeks that followed blurred together. I bounced from one friend's couch to another, 3 nights here, 4 nights there, always careful not to overstay my welcome. At first, people were sympathetic. They offered meals, blankets, even advice. But sympathy doesn't last forever. By the second or third week, the hints started. We're having family visits soon. I need my space back. By mid-January, I was out of places to stay. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and the cold cut deeper than anything I'd felt before. I spent nights in bus stations, public libraries, and once behind a gas station, curled up with my duffel bag as a pillow. I skipped meals to make the cash I had stretch longer. I applied for part-time jobs, but without experience, most places rejected me before the interview. 3 weeks after being kicked out, I decided to return to the house. Not to speak to anyone, just to grab my old laptop from the garage. It was my only tool for scholarship applications and job searches. I waited until evening, hoping no one would see me. They did. Before I could reach the side door, a police cruiser pulled into the driveway. Officer Reed stepped out, his breath visible in the cold. "You Caesar?" he asked. "Yeah. Your mother says you're trespassing." "I'm not. I used to live here. I just came to get my laptop." "How old are you?" Reed asked. 17, he sighed. "Technically, they're still responsible for you. But if you don't want to go back, I'm not going to drag you inside. I'll flag CPS and try to reach a relative. Just don't come back here. They're not going to change. I just need—" "What you need," he interrupted gently, "is to stop trying to fix something that's already broken. If you want a future, you build it without them." He let me walk away without charges. I never went back. A week later, I was sitting in the public library using a free computer when a woman tapped me on the shoulder. I turned, and for a second, I didn't recognize her. Mary Ann, my father's older sister. I hadn't seen her in nearly 5 years. "Officer Reed pulled my number from a prior report and called me as soon as he could," she said. "Told me what happened." "I knew your parents were selfish, but throwing you out? On Christmas Eve?" She shook her head. "You're coming with me." Mary Ann had always kept her distance from Lydia and Anne, calling them snakes in designer shoes. When she heard I was on the streets, she showed up at the library where I'd been spending my days and offered me a room. It wasn't charity. Mary Ann made it clear. If I stayed, I'd have to pull my weight. Within a week, she got me a part-time job at a small auto garage. The work was tough, long hours, grease under my nails, aching muscles, but I didn't complain. It was a lifeline. I started saving every cent. A month later, I bought a rusted, barely running used car for a few $100s. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And more importantly, it was a roof when I needed one. When Mary Ann's spare room wasn't available or I had late shifts, I'd park behind a 24-hour grocery store and sleep there. The grind became my routine. Garage shifts during the day, delivery gigs at night. On breaks, I taught myself coding and digital marketing using free online courses. Every cruel comment Lydia and Anne posted online about their vacations, luxury dinners, family Christmas photos added fuel to the fire. Anne once wrote, "The house feels lighter without dead weight." She meant it as a jab. I took it as motivation. By spring, I'd saved enough to launch a small e-commerce site. It barely made sales, but it was a start, proof that I could build something. A few months later, I landed a competitive tech scholarship. It felt like the first real victory I'd ever earned on my own. One night, months later, I walked past my old neighborhood on my way home from a delivery. The houses were glowing again, music spilling into the street. I stopped across from my family's house. The windows were lit, laughter echoing from inside, the same warmth I'd once watched from the outside. I stood there for a moment, then zipped my jacket and walked away. They chose to throw me out. I was choosing never to go back. 4 years later, I was back to celebrate Grandpa's 75th birthday. The invitation had surprised me. I hadn't spoken to most of my family since the day I left. My father never reached out. Lydia and Anne pretended I didn't exist. But Albert, he was different. Even after I was gone, he sent birthday cards, sometimes even checks, and a handwritten note when I got my scholarship. He was the only one who treated me like I still mattered. When his card arrived with a handwritten note, "I'd like you there. Please come," I knew I couldn't refuse. The driveway was full when I arrived. Expensive cars lined the curb, the kind Lydia loved to name-drop in conversations. The house looked exactly the same. Same porch light, same wreath, same warm glow through the windows. Nothing had changed, except me. I parked down the street and sat in the car for a moment, steadying myself. Then I stepped out, straightened my jacket, and walked toward the door. The moment I stepped inside, the noise hit me. Laughter, clinking glasses, music humming from hidden speakers. A few relatives I barely remembered gave polite nods as I passed. Others stared like they'd seen a ghost. Lydia noticed me first. Her smile vanished. "Well," she said, wine glass in hand. "Look who decided to show up. Good to see you too," I said evenly. Anne followed, dressed head to toe in designer labels, a fake smile plastered on her face. "I was betting you wouldn't have the nerve," she said. "Guess I owe Mom $20. I ignored the jab and looked for my father. Stephen was standing by the fireplace with a drink in his hand, deep in conversation with one of Albert's friends. He looked up, saw me, and for a second his expression faltered. Then he gave a stiff nod. Nothing more. The tension in the room was thick, but I kept my head high. I wasn't the kid they'd humiliated anymore. I'd built my life from nothing, and I wasn't here to impress them. "Caesar," a voice called behind me. It was Elena, Albert's attorney and oldest friend. "I'm glad you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. She lowered her voice. "Albert's been working on something. Don't leave before the toast." I nodded, not sure what she meant. I spent the next hour avoiding conversations. Lydia introduced Anne to anyone who would listen as an up-and-coming entrepreneur, though I knew from social media that her influencer projects were failing. My father pretended I wasn't there. Every time I passed them, Anne's voice rose just loud enough for me to catch a word. Pathetic, still bitter, probably unemployed. I didn't take the bait. I focused on the reason I was there. Albert. It was nearly 9 when the clinking of a spoon against a glass silenced the chatter. Albert stood at the head of the long dining table, his posture straight, his voice strong. "Thank you all for coming," he began. 75 years is a long time to be alive, and I'm grateful to have so much family here tonight." He paused, scanning the room. Then his tone shifted. Slower, heavier, deliberate. 4 years ago, something valuable disappeared from this house. A Rolex GMT Master 2 white gold, $45,000. My son's watch. At the time, my grandson Caesar was accused of stealing it. He was thrown out, disowned. But as of recently, his voice tightened. I learned the truth. The room stilled. Forks hovered in midair. Lydia's smile faded. By chance, I was speaking with an old friend of mine who runs a pawn shop downtown. I mentioned the watch, just a passing comment, and he froze. He told me that just after Christmas that year, a young woman came into his shop with a matching piece. Nervous, shaking, talking too much. A ripple of unease spread across the room. Anne's hands tightened around her glass. "I showed him a photo of the missing watch," Albert continued. He didn't hesitate. Same model, same serial and engraving. "And the name on the paperwork?" He paused, letting the silence stretch. "Anne Alvarez." The room erupted in whispers. Lydia's face drained of color. Stephen's hand trembled as he set his drink down. Anne stared at the floor, frozen. Through his records, we traced the serial number to the current holder. After the police contacted them, the watch was returned. "But I didn't stop there," Albert said, pacing slowly as if presenting evidence in court. "I wanted the whole story. So I asked for help, and we followed the money. $15,000 was wired to a debt collector to pay off a boyfriend's gambling problem. 12,000 more paid for a European vacation, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, champagne brunches, and 10,000 vanished into a cryptocurrency scheme that collapsed in weeks. No one spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. And while all of this was happening, Albert said, his voice rising just slightly, the person you all chose to blame, the one you called a liar and a thief, was trying to survive with nothing. Caesar lost his home, his family, and 4 years of his life because of a story you all never questioned." He turned toward me. "Tonight, I want that story corrected. Caesar, you were innocent. You always were." The room was silent. Lydia's lips moved, but no words came out. Stephen stared at the table, unable to look at me. Anne's eyes were glassy with shock, her face pale. I felt a dozen eyes on me, but I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The truth had been buried for 4 years, and now it was standing naked in the center of the room for everyone to see. I stayed long enough to thank Albert quietly. Then I slipped out before dessert, the cold night air hitting me like a wave. I didn't want to see the fallout. I didn't want apologies. The people inside that house had already shown me who they were. As I walked down the driveway, I realized something had changed. For years, I'd carried the weight of their betrayal like a chain. But now, as snow crunched under my boots and the house faded into the distance behind me. I felt lighter. They had tried to bury me with lies. Tonight, the truth dug me out. I didn't hear from my father for 3 days after Albert's party. Then the messages started. At first, they were full of apologies. Long, desperate texts about how he didn't know the whole story, how he regretted everything, and how he wanted to make it right. Then they shifted. The tone grew colder, angrier. He accused me of turning Albert against him, of brainwashing the family, of humiliating them in front of their friends. I ignored every single one. Then Albert asked me to meet Stephen this once. Against my better judgment, I texted Stephen an address, a small cafe near the old library where I used to study. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting at a corner table with a half-finished cup of coffee. He looked tired, older than I remembered, but there was still that same intensity in his eyes. The same man who had thrown me out on Christmas Eve was sitting in front of me like nothing had happened. "Caesar," he said, standing as if we were old friends. "Thank you for coming. Let's just talk," I replied, taking a seat. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I owe you an apology." His voice was low, measured. "I was wrong. About the watch. About that night. About a lot of things." I didn't respond. I wanted to hear what else he had to say. "I thought I was doing what was best," he continued. "I believed what they told me. And when I saw you in my office, I let my anger take over. I failed you as a father." For a moment, I almost believed him. But then his tone shifted. Subtle at first, then sharper. "But you have to understand," he said, leaning forward. "I was under a lot of pressure. I had Lydia in one ear, Anne in the other, and I didn't know what to believe. And now you've gone and turned my own father against me. Do you have any idea what that toast did to me?" The words hit me like a slap. "What it did to you," I repeated. "It told the truth. That's what it did." He exhaled sharply. "You didn't need to make it public. You could have handled this privately. Instead, you humiliated me. Humiliated our family." "Our family?" I scoffed. "The same family that called me a thief and threw me out into the snow without a second thought? The same people who ignored me for 4 years while I was sleeping on floors and working 2 jobs to survive?" His jaw tightened. "Caesar, I'm trying to fix this." "No," I said. "You're trying to fix how it looks. There's a difference." The conversation shifted fast, from calm to confrontational. He slammed his palm lightly on the table. "You don't understand what it's like to have everything you've built fall apart because of one mistake. I lost clients. Friends stopped calling. People think I'm a fool." "You are a fool," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You believed a lie because it was easier than believing me, and now you're paying for it." "Watch your tone," he snapped, the old authority creeping back into his voice. "No," I said quietly. "I'm done watching my tone. You kicked me out like trash. You let them destroy my name. You didn't even answer my messages when I begged you to hear me out. And now that the truth is out, you're still trying to blame someone else." The silence between us was sharp. People at nearby tables were starting to glance over. Stephen looked around, embarrassed, then leaned in. "I'm asking you to move on. We're still family. We can rebuild." "Family?" I repeated. "Family protects you. Family listens. Family doesn't throw a 17-year-old out on Christmas Eve without proof." His voice hardened. "You're being dramatic. I already said I was sorry." "No," I said, standing now. "You said you were sorry you got caught. Not sorry for what you did." He stood too, his face flushed. "You think you're better than me now? Because Albert's giving you money? Because you got a few scholarships?" "I don't think I'm better than you," I replied. "I just know I'll never be like you." Something in his eyes shifted. Anger, pride, maybe even fear. But he didn't stop. "One day, you'll regret this. One day, you'll understand how much I sacrificed." I stared at him for a long moment before answering. "You didn't sacrifice anything. You threw away your son." I turned and walked toward the door. He called my name, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I stood outside the cafe for a few minutes, the winter air biting at my face. I should have felt angry, but I didn't. What I felt instead was clarity. Cold, unshakable clarity. My father hadn't come to apologize. He'd come to rewrite the story. He wanted forgiveness without accountability, redemption without consequences. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe him either. I pulled my phone from my pocket and blocked his number. The cycle ended here. 2 weeks passed after the cafe confrontation. I hadn't heard from my father since the day I walked away, and I thought that might be the end of it. But then Albert called. His voice was calm, but there was something deliberate beneath the surface. "I need you to come by the house," he said. "There's something we need to talk about. Privately." When Albert used that tone, it was never about small talk. I drove over the next morning, unsure what to expect. He greeted me at the door with a firm handshake and led me into his study, a room that smelled of old books and cedar, lined with decades of family history. On the table in front of him were several folders, each thick with documents. "What's all this?" I asked. "Evidence," he replied, "and a very big problem." Albert explained that after the truth about the watch came out, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface. The way Lydia and Anne had manipulated my father so easily, the way they lied without hesitation, it had left him unsettled. So he started digging. It began with a review of the family company's financial records. At first, everything looked fine. Then the inconsistencies started showing up. Small withdrawals here, unaccounted transfers there. The deeper he went, the uglier it became. Over the course of 3 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars had quietly disappeared from company and personal accounts. Lydia had been issuing company credit cards in her name, charging them with business expenses that were actually designer handbags, spa treatments, and private chauffeurs. Anne had been funneling company funds into side ventures, failed influencer projects, expensive vacations, even a short-lived clothing brand that collapsed in months. And that wasn't the worst of it. Albert opened another folder and slid a document across the desk. It was a loan agreement, a substantial one, taken out under Stephen's name, but the signature wasn't his. "Forged?" I asked. Albert nodded. "Your mother signed it. She used the money to bail Anne out of a crypto scheme gone bad. $500,000 gone in a single night." I stared at the paperwork. It wasn't just greed. It was reckless, calculated betrayal. They hadn't just destroyed trust. They had been bleeding the family dry while blaming everyone else for their mess. Then Albert leaned back and added something that caught me off guard. "And you asked me once why Anne ever pawned the Rolex in the first place. If they were capable of stealing so much, why bother with that?" I nodded. The question had been eating at me. "Because that happened before all of this," Albert said. "At the time, they didn't have access to company accounts. Lydia wasn't part of the business yet, and Anne didn't know how to move money without getting caught. They needed fast, untraceable cash, and they needed it immediately." He flipped another page, showing bank statements. Her boyfriend was deep in debt. Not credit card debt. The dangerous kind. Loan sharks, threats. They needed tens of thousands of dollars within days. The company funds were too risky to touch then. Too many eyes, too much paper trail. But your father's Rolex? She could pawn it that afternoon and walk out with cash before anyone noticed. It made perfect sense. The watch theft hadn't been part of a grand plan. It was panic. A desperate, impulsive move before they grew bolder and turned their crimes into something much larger. "What about my father?" I asked quietly. "He's clueless," Albert said. "Or maybe he chose not to see it. Either way, he let them run wild, and now they've nearly destroyed everything I built." I leaned back in the chair. "What are you going to do?" Albert's expression hardened. "I'm cutting them off. All of them." He wasn't speaking figuratively. Over the next hour, he laid out his plan. His lawyers were already restructuring the family trust. My father's name was being removed as a beneficiary. Every asset, real estate, shares, bonds, would bypass him entirely. The money that was supposed to sustain him in retirement? Gone. Lydia and Anne? They wouldn't see a cent. "They had their chance," Albert said, "and they proved they can't be trusted with the legacy of this family." I didn't know what to say. It was a monumental decision. Not just a punishment, but a final judgment. "There's one more thing," Albert added. "I'm setting aside a portion of the estate for you. Not because you're entitled to it, but because you've earned it. You've shown integrity when everyone else around you showed greed." I shook my head. "I didn't do any of this for money." "I know," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "That's exactly why you deserve it." The fallout was immediate. Within days, word spread that Albert had rewritten his will. Lydia was furious. She called Albert's attorney repeatedly, threatening lawsuits. None of it mattered. The paperwork was airtight. Anne spiraled. Her cards were frozen. Her accounts drained. Her ventures collapsing. One night, she sent me a long, rambling message online, begging for help. She said she was pressured into everything, that she never meant for it to go this far, that she was just trying to protect the family. I deleted it without replying. Even after I blocked him, he kept calling from new numbers. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails swinging between rage and desperation. In one, he shouted that I had turned Albert against his own son. In another, he begged me to talk. I didn't respond. In under 2 weeks, Albert called again. "It's done," he said simply. "The trust is finalized. They're cut off." I asked how my father took it. He's furious, Albert said, but he still doesn't see why it's happening. He blames everyone but himself. Lydia's talking divorce, and Anne's drowning in debt. A week after Albert finalized the trust, the shockwaves began. At first, nothing obvious changed, just a shift in tone when my father's name came up. Calls stopped being returned, meetings were rescheduled, and people he once called friends suddenly became too busy. It was the kind of silence that always comes before everything falls apart. Within 2 weeks, the first cracks appeared. Word of the trust changes had reached the firm, and whispers spread through the legal community. An internal audit followed. It was called routine, but everyone knew why it was happening. Investigators dug into records, and soon enough patterns started to emerge. Forged signatures, unapproved transfers, missing funds. Nothing had gone public yet, but the writing was on the wall. By the second month, the situation exploded. The media caught wind, and the headlines were brutal. Top attorney's family linked to financial misconduct. Investigation launched into Alvarez Holdings. Every detail of their scheme came to light. Lydia's name was tied to embezzlement. Anne's influencer brand was exposed as a shell company, and my father's reputation, built over decades, was shredded in days. The firm suspended him pending investigation. State regulators opened a case. Clients cut ties. People he once mentored wouldn't return his calls. The man who once terrified courtrooms suddenly had no one in his corner. The third month was worse. Creditors called daily. Accounts were frozen. Sponsorships vanished. Anne's projects collapsed one after another, and Lydia's carefully curated image crumbled. Charity galas, high society dinners, exclusive circles, gone. Around that time, Albert's lawyers started the process of reclaiming the family home. It would take time, but the outcome was inevitable. By the 5th month, humiliation became public. When the eviction notice arrived, Anne completely lost it. She stormed onto Albert's property, screaming that he was destroying the family. Albert listened quietly before cutting her off with a single sentence. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't drain accounts or frame their own blood. This is the result of your choices. The house went on the market weeks later. Anne's luxury SUV was repossessed. Lydia was photographed shouting at debt collectors, and the pictures went viral. The family that had obsessed over appearances had become a public spectacle. Anne tried one last time to salvage her image. She launched a second-chance rebrand online, crying on camera about growth and learning from mistakes. It failed instantly. Sponsors vanished, followers disappeared, and she quietly deleted everything. Lydia fared no better. With no money and no one willing to associate with her, she faded from the social world she once ruled. By the 6th month, Lydia filed for divorce. She accused Stephen of emotional neglect and betrayal, hoping for a payout. But Albert's lawyers had sealed every loophole. The accounts were frozen, the trust was untouchable, and there was nothing left for her to win. Stephen's professional life was over too. No firm would hire him. His name was toxic. The man who once preached control now had none. He left me a voicemail I never answered. She left, he said quietly. I gave them everything. I listened once before deleting it. He still didn't understand. He had given them everything instead of me, and now he had nothing. By the 8th month, they were unrecognizable. Anne was working retail for minimum wage. Lydia was selling overpriced skincare online. Stephen, stripped of wealth and reputation, was living alone in a small, rundown apartment. I saw him once by accident in a grocery store. He looked older and smaller, like the weight of every decision he'd made had finally caught up with him. He tried to speak, but I kept walking. There was nothing left to say. Albert seemed lighter when we spoke. It was hard to watch, he admitted one afternoon. But sometimes the only way to stop rot is to let it collapse under its own weight. He was right. Neither of us had destroyed them. We hadn't needed to. They had done it to themselves, one selfish decision at a time. Their downfall wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow, humiliating, and final. And for the first time since I was 17, I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Life after their collapse was quiet, almost unnervingly so. For the first time in years, there were no angry messages, no manipulation, no guilt tripping, just silence. And in that silence, I began building a life that had nothing to do with them. I cut off every point of contact, changed my number, stopped checking the old email, and told relatives I didn't want updates. It wasn't about revenge. I just didn't want their chaos bleeding into the future I was trying to create. Work became my focus. The degree I'd fought for finally paid off, and I moved quickly through the ranks at a cybersecurity firm. I led projects, hired my own team, and earned the respect I'd once begged for. Every milestone felt like proof that I had built something entirely on my own. I traveled too, not to escape, but to live. From the temples of Kyoto to the mountains of Patagonia, every new place reminded me how far I'd come from that night I sat in my freezing car on Christmas Eve. The boy who once had nowhere to go was now writing his own story. Albert and I grew closer. He wasn't just my grandfather anymore. He was my anchor. We spoke often about the future of the family business. And for the first time, I was part of that future. They tried to break you, he told me one evening. But you built yourself stronger than they ever were. Almost a year later, a letter arrived. It was from my father. The handwriting alone stopped me cold. Inside, he admitted everything. The betrayal, the lies, the blindness, and said the words I once thought I'd never hear. I'm sorry. He wrote about how Lydia had remarried and left without a word, how Anne barely spoke to him, how empty life had become. He said he wished he could go back and change it all. I read it twice, then I put it away. I didn't respond. Not because I hated him, but because I no longer needed anything from him. Not an apology, not a conversation, not a relationship. I'd already forgiven him in my own way. Forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me. That winter, Albert and I hosted a small holiday dinner. Marianne came, along with cousins and a few close friends. It was warm and full of laughter, the kind of evening I used to dream about when I was younger. At one point, Marianne raised her glass and said, "Here's to second chances, the ones we give ourselves." Her words stayed with me. My story was never about revenge. It was about rebuilding after being broken. It was about proving that their choices didn't define who I became. I haven't spoken to my father since that letter. Maybe one day I will. Maybe I won't. If I do, it will be my choice, not his. The boy he threw out on Christmas Eve is gone. What's left is a man who built a life without their approval, who learned that family is about loyalty and love, not blood. And that man, the one they tried to destroy, is finally free. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 6. When I refused to let my golden child brother move into my apartment, my dad cornered me in my work parking lot and beat me. You will do as I say, or you're dead to the family. So I pressed charges and watched the whole family go nuclear. Hey, Reddit. So my dad physically assaulted me in my work parking lot because I wouldn't let my deadbeat brother crash at my place. Then I pressed charges and watched my entire family lose their minds. Buckle up because this story goes places. I'm 28 male, and I finally escaped my toxic family 3 years ago. My younger brother Nathan, 25 male, is the golden child who's never been held accountable for anything in his entire life. I'm talking next-level favoritism that would make a behavioral psychologist write an entire dissertation. Growing up, I was the family workhorse. Started working at 15 busing tables at a local diner, saved every penny, maintained good grades because that's what responsible people do. Meanwhile, Nathan spent his teenage years gaming until 4 a.m. and treating our mom like a personal maid service. His dirty laundry would pile up in his room until it literally started growing things, and mom would still go in there and clean it all up while telling me I needed to be more understanding of his creative personality. The favoritism started early and never let up. When I was 12 and Nathan was 9, we both wanted bikes for our birthdays. I got a used one from a garage sale. Nathan got a brand new mountain bike from a sporting goods store that cost $400. When I pointed out the difference, my mom said I should be grateful I got anything at all. High school was when it really ramped up. I got my first job at 15 because I wanted money for things like going to movies or buying my own clothes. Nathan turned 15, and my dad actually talked him out of getting a job, saying he should enjoy being young. I had a midnight curfew through high school. Didn't matter if it was a weekend or a school night. Midnight was the cutoff. Break it by 20 minutes? Grounded for 2 weeks. Nathan? No curfew whatsoever. He'd roll in at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, and nobody said a word. When I was 16, I saved up $800 to buy a used Honda Civic, paid for it myself, paid for my own insurance. Nathan turned 16, and my parents bought him a 2-year-old Nissan Altima as a birthday gift. When I asked why I had to buy my own car but Nathan got one handed to him, my dad said, "You were already saving money for one anyway, so it worked out for everyone." The academic double standards were worse. I got grounded for a week for getting a B+ in chemistry. My dad gave me this lecture about not living up to my potential. Nathan failed 3 classes his senior year. 3. My parents hired him a private tutor at $50 an hour twice a week and blamed his teachers for not engaging him properly. When I was 19 and working full-time while taking community college classes, my parents started charging me $600 monthly rent. Their reasoning? I was an adult now and needed to learn responsibility. Cool, fine, makes sense. Except Nathan turned 19 2 years later and continued living completely rent-free. When I brought this up, my dad hit me with, "Every kid is different, and Nathan isn't ready for that kind of pressure yet." I paid rent for 3 straight years while living at home and going to community college. That's $21,600 total. Nathan lived rent-free for 25 years. I paid for my own community college classes while working 50-hour weeks. Saved up for 2 years, transferred to a state university, and graduated with a degree in accounting. Walked across that stage debt-free because I worked my tail off to avoid loans. My graduation gift? A $75 Amazon gift card and dinner at a chain restaurant where my dad spent the whole meal on his phone. My graduation day was actually pretty depressing. I'd worked for 6 years straight, maintaining good grades while pulling full work weeks, and managed to graduate without a single dollar of debt. My parents showed up 15 minutes late and sat in the back. Other families had signs and balloons. Mine brought nothing. At dinner, nobody asked about my job prospects or plans. Just good job and then immediately pivoting to talk about Nathan's future. The gift card came in a drugstore birthday card with neither of them having written anything inside except their names. It still had the activation receipt tucked inside from that morning. Nathan enrolled in college the next year. Failed out after 3 semesters because he spent more time partying than studying. My parents paid for every cent of it. Over $35,000 total. Tuition, room and board, spending money, everything. He failed more than half his classes and quit. Their response? Tell him it was okay, and that they'd support whatever he decided to do next. I'd paid for my entire education myself, graduated debt-free with honors, and got an Amazon gift card. Nathan blew through 35 grand in party money and got told he was brave for trying something new. After graduation, I landed a decent job as a junior accountant at a mid-size firm. The pay was solid, nothing crazy, but enough to start building a real life. I lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment for 2 years, saving every dollar I could. No eating out, no subscriptions I didn't need, packed lunch every single day. I was laser focused on one goal, getting my own place where I'd never have to deal with my family's dysfunction again. During those 2 years, Nathan bounced between part-time jobs, worked at a retail store for 3 months before quitting because his manager was too strict. Tried being a personal trainer for like 6 weeks before deciding that waking up early wasn't his thing. Delivered food for a month before his car broke down and he decided the job wasn't worth the hassle. Every time he quit, my parents welcomed him home with open arms and zero expectations that he'd contribute anything. Meanwhile, I kept grinding. No vacations, no new car, nothing flashy. Just work, save, repeat. My coworkers would invite me out for happy hour and I'd decline because those $8 drinks add up. They thought I was boring. I thought I was motivated. Finally, 3 years ago, I had enough saved up. Found a 1-bedroom apartment in a decent area, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Signed the lease, moved in with the bare minimum furniture, and felt like I'd won the lottery. No more family drama, no more double standards, no more walking on eggshells. Just peace and quiet in my own space. The first night in my apartment, I ordered pizza and sat on my cheap couch in my empty living room and just appreciated the silence. No parents arguing about money, no Nathan playing video games at max volume at 2 a.m., no tension. Just me and my mediocre pepperoni pizza in glorious solitude. I kept minimal contact with my family after moving out. Showed up for major holidays because completely cutting them off felt too extreme, but I stopped going to every random family dinner or event. My parents acted hurt, but honestly, my mental health improved drastically. I wasn't constantly comparing myself to Nathan or feeling like I'd never be good enough. I was just existing on my own terms. Work was going well. I'd gotten 2 raises in 3 years, was handling bigger accounts, and my boss mentioned I was on track for a promotion. Nothing explosive, just steady career growth built on showing up and doing good work. I was finally building the stable, drama-free life I'd always wanted. Then, about 4 months ago, Nathan showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Tuesday night. I opened the door, and there he was, standing in my hallway with 2 duffel bags and his gaming PC in a box. No warning, no heads up, just appeared like a bad surprise party. "Hey man, can I crash here for a bit?" he said, already trying to push past me with his bags. I blocked the doorway. "What? No, what are you talking about?" Apparently, Our parents had finally reached their limit. Nathan had been living at home rent-free for 25 years, contributing nothing, and spending his days gaming and working random part-time jobs that he'd quit after a few weeks. My dad had gotten fed up and told Nathan he had 1 month to either start paying $400 monthly rent or find somewhere else to live. Nathan naturally did neither. Just kept living there rent-free, assuming Dad was bluffing. Spoiler alert, Dad wasn't bluffing. They'd had a massive argument that morning, and my parents told Nathan he needed to leave. So his brilliant solution was to show up at my place, expecting me to just take him in. Come on, bro. It'll be like old times, he said. Like our childhood was some nostalgic bonding experience, instead of me getting the short end of every stick while he coasted through life. No, I said flatly. You can't stay here. His face went from friendly to confused to annoyed in about 3 seconds. Are you serious right now? I'm your brother. Yeah, and this is my apartment that I worked my tail off to afford. You're not moving in. He tried every angle. It would only be temporary. He'd get a job and start contributing. He'd be super quiet, and I wouldn't even notice he was there. He'd help with chores. On and on. Every promise sounded exactly like the countless other promises he'd made and broken throughout his entire life. I stood firm. Nathan, you need to figure this out yourself. I'm not your backup plan. So you're just going to let me be homeless? Real nice, bro. You're not homeless. You have options. You can find roommates, get a full-time job, rent a room somewhere. You're 25 years old. Figure it out like the rest of us had to. He stood there for a minute, clearly expecting me to cave. When I didn't, he picked up his bags and left without another word. I closed the door, locked it, and felt absolutely zero guilt. I'd worked too hard for my peace to let it get disrupted by someone who'd never faced a real consequence in his life. I should have known that wouldn't be the end of it. The next day, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times. Then my dad called. More voicemails. Then Nathan. Then my mom again. I turned my phone on silent and went about my day. That night, I finally listened to the messages. My mom's were all variations of, "How could you do this to your brother?" and "Family helps family," and "I raised you better than this." My dad's were more direct. "Call me back right now. We need to talk about Nathan." Nathan's message was just him saying I was a selfish jerk and that he'd remember this. I didn't call any of them back. Over the next week, the calls and texts kept coming. My mom tried guilt trips. My dad tried authority. Nathan tried both. I ignored all of it. The messages were relentless. My mom would call crying about abandoning family. My dad left voicemails using his authority voice, demanding I call back immediately. Nathan's texts ranged from desperate to angry, first begging, then accusing me of being a terrible brother. One night around 2 a.m., Nathan called 11 times in a row. The voicemail he left was him rambling about how he couldn't believe his own brother would do this to him, how he'd always looked up to me. Pure manipulation. We'd never been close. My mom's texts were masterclasses in guilt. Your brother is sleeping on a friend's couch because of you. I hope you can live with yourself knowing your family is suffering. This isn't how we raised you. Then my aunt got involved. Then my grandmother. Apparently, this had become a full family crisis. My aunt said she couldn't believe I'd turned my back on Nathan. My grandmother said I was being cruel and that she was praying for me. Here's the thing, though. Not a single one of them offered to let Nathan stay with them. My aunt had a spare bedroom. My grandmother had an entire basement apartment. But no, I was the designated savior because I'd successfully gotten my life together. My mom even tried to coordinate a surprise visit to my apartment with my aunt. I saw them through the peephole one evening, both standing in my hallway. I didn't answer. I stood there silently as they knocked for 5 minutes. Finally, I said through the door, "I can see you. I'm not opening this door. Please leave." My aunt tried reasoning with me. "Honey, we just want to talk. We're family. There's nothing to sort out. Nathan needs to find his own place. Goodbye." They stood there for another 10 minutes. I put on headphones and let them waste their time. I sent one group text to everyone. Nathan is 25. He can get a job and find his own place like every other adult. I'm not discussing this further. Then I muted the group chat and went back to my peaceful existence. The response was immediate. My phone buzzed nonstop for an hour. Everything from "you're heartless" to "we'll remember this." I didn't read most of them. My mom sent a message saying I'd changed since moving out, that my fancy apartment and job had made me cold and selfish. The irony was almost funny. I hadn't changed. I'd just stopped accepting unequal treatment, and suddenly that made me the villain. For about 2 weeks, things went quiet. I figured they'd given up and Nathan had found somewhere to crash. I was wrong. One Thursday evening, I was leaving work around 6 p.m. It had been a long day, I was tired, and I was looking forward to going home, making some pasta, and watching mindless shows. I walked out of my office building into the parking lot, heading toward my car. That's when I saw my dad's truck parked right next to my car. He was leaning against his driver's door, arms crossed, staring directly at me. My stomach dropped immediately. This wasn't a coincidental run-in. He'd come here specifically, probably been waiting for who knows how long. I thought about turning around and going back inside, but that felt cowardly. I was 28 years old. I could handle a conversation with my father, so I kept walking. "We need to talk," he said as I approached. "I'm heading home, Dad. If you want to talk, you can call me. I've been calling you. You don't answer. Because there's nothing to discuss. I already gave you my answer about Nathan." His jaw clenched. "Get in my truck. Now." "No, I'm going home." I tried to move past him toward my car, but he stepped in front of me, blocking my path. We were in a pretty empty section of the parking lot. Most people had left already. There were a few cars scattered around, but no one nearby. "You're going to listen to me," he said, his voice dropping low. "Nathan is your brother. You're going to let him stay with you until he gets on his feet." "No, I'm not. This isn't a request. I'm an adult with my own place. You don't get to make demands about what I do with it." That's when his demeanor shifted. The frustrated dad act dropped, and something harder took its place. "You think you're so much better than the rest of us, don't you? Got your fancy apartment, your accounting job, acting like you're too good to help family? This isn't about being better than anyone. This is about boundaries." "Boundaries," he repeated, almost laughing. "You want to talk about boundaries? How about the boundary of not abandoning your brother when he needs help? He doesn't need help. He needs consequences. There's a difference." Wrong thing to say. I saw it in his eyes the second the words left my mouth. "You ungrateful piece of work," he said, stepping closer. "After everything we did for you growing up, fed you, housed you, paid for your school, I paid for my own school. And you charged me rent while letting Nathan live free. Because Nathan needed support. You were always fine on your own. So I get punished for being responsible? You're not being punished, you're being asked to help family. But apparently you're too selfish to understand that." "I'm done with this conversation," I said, trying to step around him again. He grabbed my arm. Hard. "We're not done. Let go of me. Not until you agree to help your brother." I pulled my arm away, and he grabbed my shirt instead, yanking me back. "Dad, let go. You will do as I say, or you're dead to this family. Do you understand me?" Before I could respond, he shoved me backward. I stumbled but caught myself. This wasn't happening. This couldn't actually be happening. My own father, in my work parking lot, getting physical with me because I wouldn't let his favorite son crash at my apartment. "You've got until tomorrow to call Nathan and tell him he can move in," Dad said. "Otherwise, don't bother showing up to any family events ever again. You won't be welcome." "Fine by me," I said, my voice shaking but steady. "If that's how it is, then we're done." That's when he hit me. I didn't even see it coming. He threw a punch that caught me right in the side of my face, near my ear. The impact knocked me sideways, and I went down hard on the asphalt. My glasses flew off and skidded under a nearby car. Pain exploded through my skull, and I tasted blood. I was on the ground, disoriented, and he was standing over me, breathing hard. "Get up." I didn't move. Couldn't really. My head was ringing, and I was trying to process that my father had just punched me in a parking lot, like some bar fight. I said, "Get up." He reached down and grabbed my collar, hauling me partway up before shoving me back down. My hand scraped against the rough parking lot surface. "You think you can disrespect this family? Disrespect me?" He kicked me in the ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough that I felt it through my whole torso. I curled up instinctively, trying to protect myself. "You're going to help your brother," he said, standing over me. "Because that's what family does. And if you don't, then you're not part of this family anymore. Got it?" I didn't say anything. I was still on the ground. Everything hurt, and I was running through my options. Fighting back would just escalate things. Trying to run would be pointless. So I just stayed down. After a few seconds, he seemed to realize what he'd done. His posture changed, got less aggressive. "Look, Nathan needs this. He's your brother. Stop being stubborn and just do the right thing." Then he walked back to his truck, got in, and drove away. Left me lying in the parking lot bleeding. I stayed there for a minute, maybe two, just breathing and taking inventory. My face hurt where he'd punched me. My ribs ached from the kick. My hands were scraped up from the asphalt. But nothing felt broken. I was just bruised and bleeding and absolutely furious. Slowly, I got to my feet, found my glasses, thankfully not broken, and put them back on. Checked my reflection in my car window. I had a cut on my cheek that was bleeding pretty good, and I could already feel swelling starting along my jaw. My work shirt was torn at the collar and had bloodstains on it. I got in my car and just sat there for a while. My hands were shaking. I kept replaying what just happened. My father, the man who was supposed to protect me, had just beaten me in a parking lot because I wouldn't enable my deadbeat brother. Then something clicked in my brain. A weird calm came over me. I pulled out my phone and called 911. The operator answered and I said very clearly, "I need to report an assault. My father just attacked me in a parking lot." I gave them all the information. My location, my name, my father's name and description, his license plate number, everything. The operator said they were sending officers and asked if I needed an ambulance. I said no. I could drive myself to the hospital if needed, but I wanted to file a police report. 2 police cars showed up within 10 minutes. I gave my statement to the officers, showed them my injuries, told them exactly what happened, that I'd refused to let my brother move in with me. My father had confronted me at my workplace, physically prevented me from leaving, and then assaulted me when I refused to change my mind. One officer took photos of my face, my scraped hands, and the rip in my shirt. The other one took down all the details. My father's information, the timeline of events, the threats he'd made. They asked if there were any security cameras. There were. My office building had cameras covering the parking lot. "Do you want to press charges?" one officer asked. "Absolutely." They seemed a bit surprised. Apparently, family assault cases usually result in people backing down or trying to handle it privately. But I was crystal clear. "I want to press full charges. Assault and battery. I want this documented and prosecuted." The officers said they'd contact my father and likely arrest him. They asked if I felt safe going home or if I needed to stay somewhere else. I said I'd be fine. My father didn't know where I lived. I'd never given him my new address after moving. After they left, I sat in my car and called my workplace security, explained what had happened, and asked for the parking lot footage from that evening. They said they'd save it and provide it to the police upon request. Then I drove myself to an urgent care clinic, got checked out, and documented every injury. The doctor noted the facial contusion, the rib bruising, the scraped hands. Everything got photographed and written up in a medical report. By the time I got home, it was almost 11 p.m. I was exhausted, in pain, and emotionally drained. But I also felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For years, I'd been the family punching bag, metaphorically speaking. Tonight, it had become literal. And I'd finally drawn a line in the sand that couldn't be uncrossed. I texted my boss explaining I'd been in an incident and would need the next day off. He immediately called me, concerned. I gave him the basic story. Family dispute that got physical, police were involved, I had medical documentation. He told me to take whatever time I needed and that HR would be looped in since it happened in the company parking lot. Then I silenced my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and probably 100 plus text messages. I didn't read any of them. I made coffee, took some pain medication, and waited. The messages ranged from disbelief to fury. My mom had left 6 voicemails, each one more hysterical than the last. The first one was confused. "Why are the police here? What did you tell them? Call me right now." By the 6th one, she was screaming into the phone about how I was destroying our family and that I'd better fix this immediately. Nathan's messages were predictably self-centered. "Dude, what the heck? Dad's getting arrested because you can't take a joke?" And, "Way to overreact, bro. Now everyone's mad at me because of your drama." Not once did he seem to grasp that maybe our dad beating me in a parking lot was the actual problem, not my response to it. My aunt texted saying she was shocked and appalled at my actions, that family doesn't call the police on family, and that I should be ashamed. My grandmother sent a message saying she was praying for me because I'd clearly lost my way. Various cousins chimed in with their opinions, most of them negative. Around 10 a.m., 2 police officers showed up at my door. They informed me that they'd gone to arrest my father that morning. He was being charged with assault and battery. He'd been taken into custody, processed, and was being held pending a bail hearing. The officers told me the arrest hadn't gone smoothly. My father had apparently tried to argue that this was all a misunderstanding, that I was being dramatic, that families have disagreements, and this didn't need to involve police. My mom had been there during the arrest, hysterical and screaming at the officers that they were destroying their family over nothing. The officers asked if I wanted a restraining order. I said yes. They helped me file the paperwork right there. Within hours, my father had a temporary restraining order requiring him to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. That's when my phone really exploded. My mom called 15 times in a row. My aunt, my grandmother, Nathan, even some cousins I barely talked to. Everyone had opinions about what I'd done. I finally answered my mom's call. She was hysterical, screaming about how I'd had my father arrested. How could I do this to the family? Didn't I understand this would ruin his life? He could lose his job, etc. He assaulted me, Mom, I said calmly. In a parking lot, because I wouldn't let Nathan move in with me. It wasn't that serious. You're blowing this out of proportion. He punched me in the face and kicked me while I was on the ground. You must have provoked him. Your father wouldn't just attack you for no reason. And there it was. Even with me beaten and bloodied, I was still somehow at fault in her eyes. Her golden child system couldn't allow for the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Dad had screwed up. I have medical records, police reports, and security camera footage. This isn't up for debate. If you testify against him, if you go through with this, you're not my son anymore. Do you hear me? You will be dead to this family. Okay, I said, and hung up. She called back immediately. I blocked her number. Then I blocked my dad's number, Nathan's number, and my aunt's number. Anyone who had anything to say about my decision got blocked. Within an hour, I'd cut off about 15 family members. The peace was immediate and glorious. Over the next few days, I learned through some cousins who hadn't harassed me that my family was having a complete meltdown. My father had been released on bail, but was facing criminal charges. The restraining order meant he couldn't come to family gatherings if I was there. My mom was telling everyone I'd destroyed the family over nothing. Nathan was living with my aunt now, and apparently complaining about her rules. She was making him pay $300 monthly rent and help with chores. My grandmother tried to organize some kind of intervention. She called my work phone, which I'd forgotten to block, and left a message about how disappointed she was in me, how I was tearing the family apart, and how I needed to drop the charges immediately and let bygones be bygones. She actually said that. Let bygones be bygones. Like my father's fists hitting my face were just some minor social faux pas that we should all forget about. I saved that voicemail, added it to my documentation file. Because here's what my family didn't understand. This wasn't about Nathan's housing situation anymore. This was about the fact that my father had physically assaulted me for setting a boundary. If I dropped the charges and let this slide, the message would be clear. They could do whatever they wanted to me, and I'd just take it. My extended family started picking sides. Some relatives I barely knew started posting vague social media updates about fake family members and people who turn their backs when things get hard. I didn't respond to any of it, didn't engage, just let them be mad in their own spaces. A few cousins reached out privately with support. One sent me a long message about how she dealt with similar favoritism growing up with her siblings, and how proud she was of me for standing my ground. Another cousin said he'd always thought my parents treated Nathan differently, and that he wasn't surprised this had finally blown up. Their support helped, but it didn't change my resolve. I was doing this regardless of who supported me or didn't. The legal process moved forward. My father got a lawyer who tried to paint this as a family dispute that had gotten out of hand. My lawyer presented the parking lot security footage, the medical reports, my statement, and the testimony of a coworker who'd seen part of the incident through an office window. My family ramped up their harassment campaign. Since I'd blocked most of them, they got creative. My mom mailed an 8-page handwritten letter to my apartment detailing all the ways I was destroying our family. Not once did she mention that maybe my father shouldn't have beaten me. My aunt somehow got my workplace number and called asking to speak with me. When the receptionist said I wasn't available, she launched into a speech about how I'd done something terrible. HR had to send out a memo about not giving out employee information. One cousin even showed up at my office building lobby. I kept walking to the elevator while she followed me talking about family loyalty. Building security escorted her out. The footage was damning. Crystal clear video of my father grabbing me, shoving me, punching me, kicking me while I was down. His lawyer tried to argue about provocation, but the prosecutor shut that down fast. There's no legal justification for beating your adult son in a parking lot. About 3 weeks later, my father's lawyer offered a plea deal. If I dropped the charges, my father would plead to a lesser charge, do community service, and maintain the restraining order for 1 year. I rejected it immediately. He can plead guilty to assault and battery, or we go to trial. Those are the options. My family lost it when they heard I'd refused the deal. My mom left a message with my lawyer's office begging me to reconsider. My grandmother sent me a registered letter filled with biblical quotes about forgiveness. My aunt showed up at my apartment again with Nathan. I watched through my peephole as they stood there for 20 minutes. I called building security and had them both removed. With each person who tried to defend what my father did or minimize it, my resolve only got stronger. It wasn't that bad, and family forgives just confirmed I was doing the right thing. The case went to trial. Pretty straightforward. The prosecutor presented evidence. My father's lawyer did their best with an unwinnable case. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The trial lasted 2 days. The parking lot footage was played for the jury. Several jurors physically reacted when my father punched me and I went down. One woman gasped. The video showed everything clearly. My testimony took most of day 2. I kept my voice steady and factual. Just a clear recounting of what happened. My father's lawyer tried to trip me up during cross-examination with questions about my relationship with my brother and whether I resented my parents. I answered each question calmly. Guilty on all counts. My father was sentenced to 6 months in county jail with the possibility of work release, plus 2 years probation, anger management classes, and the restraining order was extended to 5 years. He'd also have an assault conviction on his record permanently. The day of sentencing, I wasn't allowed in the courtroom because of the restraining order, but my lawyer called me right after with the verdict. I sat in my apartment, in the space I'd worked so hard for, and felt absolutely nothing but satisfaction. The family fallout was nuclear. My mother publicly disowned me on social media, posted this long rant about how I'd destroyed our family over pride and selfishness, how I'd sent my father to jail over a minor disagreement, and how she was ashamed to call me her son. Several relatives commented agreeing with her. I screenshot all of it, saved it, never responded to a single word. Nathan tried one last time to reach out through a friend of a friend, sent me a message saying that he'd moved in with our aunt, had gotten a job at a warehouse, and was trying to get his life together. He said he hoped I was happy with what I'd done, and that eventually I'd regret destroying our family over my ego. I blocked that person too. 2 months after the sentencing, I heard through one of my neutral cousins that things were falling apart. My dad lost his job. The assault conviction meant he couldn't pass the background check for the renewal of his security clearance. My mom had to pick up extra shifts to cover their mortgage. Nathan got fired from the warehouse job after 3 weeks for showing up late repeatedly and was back to living rent-free with my aunt, who was apparently at her breaking point. 3 months in, my aunt called my work phone, the one number she had that I hadn't blocked, left a message saying Nathan had overstayed his welcome, that she couldn't afford to support him anymore, and asking if I'd reconsider. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. 4 months after the trial, I got promoted to senior accountant. Came with a 20% raise and my own office. My boss pulled me aside and said the company appreciated my professionalism during that difficult personal situation and that I'd handled it with impressive maturity. Around the same time, I started dating someone I'd met at a work conference. Her name's Jennifer. On our 3rd date, I gave her the basic rundown of what happened with my family. Her response? Good for you for protecting yourself. Anyone who defends violence isn't worth keeping around. We've been together for about 6 months now. She's never once suggested I should reconcile with my family or give them another chance. She just respects that I made a decision and stuck with it. 6 months post-trial, my grandmother passed away. Natural causes, nothing dramatic. I found out through Facebook. Didn't go to the funeral. My mom posted about how some family members chose not to honor her memory, and several people commented asking who would skip their own grandmother's funeral. A cousin I was still in contact with told me that my mom had a breakdown at the funeral, crying about how her family was destroyed and how I'd torn everyone apart. My dad apparently sat in the back looking miserable, still dealing with being unemployed. Nathan showed up late and left early. I sent flowers to the funeral home with a card that just said, "Sorry for your loss." That was it. No attendance, no drama, no explanation. 8 months in, Nathan got arrested for driving on a suspended license. Apparently, he'd racked up a bunch of unpaid traffic tickets and his license had been suspended for months, but he kept driving anyway. My aunt bailed him out, then kicked him out of her house the next day. He ended up moving back in with my parents. I learned all this through my cousin, who'd been keeping me updated. She said my parents' house was a nightmare. My dad depressed and angry about losing his job, my mom exhausted from working double shifts, and Nathan back in his childhood room gaming all day, like nothing had changed. Around the 1-year anniversary of the assault, I got a letter from my father. It went to my lawyer first, who reviewed it and forwarded it to me. 3 pages of mostly justifications. He was sorry things got out of hand, but I needed to understand his perspective. He'd been under stress. He'd been frustrated. He never meant for things to escalate. He'd completed anger management and learned better coping strategies. He hoped eventually we could reconcile. Not once in 3 pages did he actually say, "I was wrong to hit you." I filed it away with the rest of the documentation and never responded. Last month, I bought a house. Small 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood about 30 minutes from my office. Jennifer helped me pick it out. We're not moving in together yet, taking things slow, but she's got her own key and stays over most weekends. The day I closed on the house, I was sitting on the back deck with a drink, looking at my yard, and my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. It was Nathan. "How'd you get this number?" I asked. "Doesn't matter. Look, I wanted to say I'm sorry, okay? For everything. For showing up at your place expecting you to take me in. For not standing up for you when we were kids. For all of it." I didn't say anything. Dad's been a mess since the trial. Mom's working herself to death. The family's falling apart. And I know it's my fault. If I'd just gotten my act together years ago, none of this would have happened. "You're right," I said. "It wouldn't have. So, is there any chance we could talk? Maybe grab coffee or something?" "No. Come on, man. I'm trying here. I'm actually working a real job now. Paying my own rent, doing the whole responsible adult thing. Doesn't that count for something? Good for you. That's what you should have been doing for the past 7 years. So that's it? You're just done with all of us forever? Nathan, Dad beat me in a parking lot because I wouldn't let you crash at my place. Mom defended him. You sent me messages calling me selfish. The entire family harassed me for pressing charges. Why would I want any of you back in my life?" He was quiet for a minute. I guess I just thought, I don't know. Family's supposed to forgive, right? Family's also not supposed to assault each other. Seems like we're both dealing with disappointment. I hung up, blocked the number, went back to enjoying my deck. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.